What go on with people? There, when I deal with, big up on yourself, so we're there again. Yeah, man, so what we are saying now, running African night morning, you see it, my people. So all you have to do is just like, share, and subscribe, Big up to, you see what I say, my people, one love. You don't know the thing, go. Just like, share, and subscribe. You see what I say? One of them thing there.
Oh, no, but good to meet you in person. So everything okay with Halio? All right, okay. So welcome to the space. Welcome to Area Firm. You've been here for a while, though. Yes. All right. Well, we'll try to figure it out. Okay. We should figure it out in a little while. It is the Running African at a minute after 6 o'clock. We're going through until 10 o'clock. That's when the big A comes in with the Sunday sunshine. And so much to do, so much to say. What a Sunday morning it is turning out to be. All right, here we go. I think we've got it up and running.
Bemedir tihun yala tenjarachnen sitenzare bedelachnem ikkerbelen igna yebedelnen ikkerendemenil awada fetna matagban kakifu adenenen fi menges tiantantanantana highly maskan lisleale.
In the name of the African ancestors who began the march of humankind in the womb of Mother Africa, we ask these ancestors to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future. In the name of the African ancestors who began the march of humankind in the womb of Mother Africa and marched down the Nile, laying the foundations for human civilization and culture, we ask these Africans to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future. In the name of these African ancestors who built their pyramids and their temples to their God concepts, to their principles, and to their moral values, who left us a legacy of architectural and monumental building unparalleled in the history of the world, we ask these ancestors who built the pyramids, who built the temples, to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future. We ask these African ancestors who took this African culture and extended it throughout Africa, building the stone cities of Zimbabwe, building the empires of the Sudan, Ghana, Mali, and Songhai, building the Swahili city-states along the east coast of Africa, and in Christian Africa, asking King Lalibela and giving him the courage to build the 12 churches of Lalibela from the ground down, monuments to the world. We ask these Africans who spread this culture to the Dogo and to the Akan and to the Yoruba and to the Bankango and to the Zulu. We ask these Africans to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future. In the name of the Africans who opened up Africa, opened up the Nile Valley to other cultures and other peoples, and they came in and nurtured themselves on the African greatness. First coming in early with the ancient Hebrews, and they synthesized this culture and produced Judaism. Later coming in were the Christians, and they synthesized this culture and produced Christianity. Coming in were also the Greeks, who took the African culture, synthesized it, and produced Greek civilization. And then later, the Prophet Muhammad, and with the Arabs coming into the Nile Valley, they synthesized the culture and produced Islam. We ask these African ancestors, who as part of their legacy laid the foundations for Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and Greek civilization, to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future. We ask those African ancestors pulled out of Africa, taken to the hells of North America, South America, the Caribbean, maintaining the spirit of African humanity in their hearts and in their minds, and who left us this enormous legacy of struggle. We ask those Africans who resisted enslavement in the villages of Africa, who resisted enslavement in the shores of Africa, who resisted enslavement in those forts and dungeons, who resisted enslavement in the holds of those ships, who resisted enslavement when they arrived on these shores in the New World. We ask these Africans who ran into the highlands of northeast Brazil and established for 100 years the first free republic in the Americas, the Republic of Palmares, and their last great leader, Zumbi, whose spirit and sacrifice We asked these Africans who replicated the Brazilian experience and went into the highlands of Jamaica and became the maroon-free communities. We asked these Africans who went into the backwoods of the Guyanas and Suriname and created free republic of the Suramaka and the Ajuka. We asked these Africans who went into the backwoods of Georgia and the swamps of Florida and moved with the Seminole Indians and resisted oppression. We ask these Africans who left us a legacy of struggle and resistance, the likes of which no one in the world has, to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future. We ask these Africans who created and laid for us a foundation of struggle and resistance that was passed on generation after generation, that was passed on to Harriet Tubman, who fought her way out of enslavement and became a symbol of freedom for all of us. Similarly, Frederick Douglass and hundreds of thousands of others fought their way out of enslavement. We asked those Africans who went with Boukman, Dessalines, to create the greatest revolutionary experience in the history of the world, the Haitian Revolution, leaving us a legacy, the likes of which no one else has had. We asked these Africans to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future.
Let us start our class with a prayer. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, friend, beloved God, Jesus Christ, Bhagavan Krishna, Mahavatar Babaji, Larima Shai, Swami Shri Yukteswarji, our Guru, Paramahansa Yogananda Ji, saints of all religions, we bow to all of you. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, great Gurus, receive our love, receive our desire to love you more, to attune our hearts and minds with your great presence. Om. Peace.
I am of her priesthood. I am the Lord of earth who entered into the earth. Evaluates whoever serves her. I am one with Ra, Lord of the two lands, and I am she who is put behind him. And Egypt. The names of your ancestors appear to be, or they're not, and yet appear to be. Or the perpetrators. Or they neither are nor appear to be, or they are and do not appear to be, or they're not and yet appear to be. Right letter aim in Ovi's case says, my task, your task, who task. Towards Africa's rendezvous with destiny, bearing witness, demanding change, understanding what it means to bear witness. Mission to remember.
Used to sing a little song.
Trump, the former president and current nominee for president of the Republican Party in the United States. He was just about to go into his speech. I was watching it live. He had gone, about 3 minutes. As a matter of fact, he had just asked permission to go off teleprompter, to go off script. And in that way had turned his body in a different direction, not facing the teleprompter. And I keep thinking to myself that if that hadn't happened, then, what the outcome might have been. But so we saw that happening live in front of us. And I know there are many questions this morning, and I know that there are many, many, many views and perspectives. But for the minute, this is what we know. In Pennsylvania, we understand that the would-be assassin, 2021, So this is what we're hearing. We don't have much information on him. What we know is that at the press conference last night, the FBI said that this was an attempted assassination on Donald Trump. The elections coming up in November, if you had any doubt, was decided yesterday. And the female just shouted to my husband that something is happening. So I heard the gunshots, saw when he reached for his ear, saw when he ducked and everything, and I said that those are gunshots, regardless of what anybody think. I mean, the channels, as you went through the different channels, they didn't immediately say what it was. Obviously, they couldn't. They didn't know what it was. But from where I was sitting in my living room in Jamaica, that I called it immediately. That was an assassination attempt. It doesn't matter which perspective you're taking it from, right? It doesn't matter which perspective you're taking it from. It is what it is. So we see that happening. We waited over an hour before the president, the current president of the United States, Joe Biden, made a statement on it. We heard Barack Obama coming out making a statement. As far as the leaders of in the U.S. and the leaders of the world are concerned, most, including Cyril Ramaphosa, have come out now to say, make a statement. So this is basically unfolding as we speak. This is developing as we speak. What happened last night happened. But I think now questions are going to be raised about how. That was immediately, if the shots had come from inside of the venue, then the question would still be how. If it's coming from outside, from a sniper, it is still going to be how. How is this possible? How is this even possible? And for anybody who has any idea of project planning at all, or project management at all, just looking at the entire scene, it doesn't matter the perspective that you're coming from. It really doesn't. It doesn't matter what you think and how you think and appearances of the mind, etc., etc. But how you deal with this immediately is that people are going to have to say, how come? How did this happen? It was, to me, just looking on as somebody who does project management, it is a failure, a colossal failure. I even now can't wrap my head around it, just looking at it. It makes me want to think it's deliberate, It makes me want to think that something is so off. Something is so off in all of this. And it is not because you think that, Joe Biden and the Democrats tried to assassinate Trump, or you think that Trump planned this himself, or you think that there's somebody else within the system, the 300, the committee of 300 or whoever planned this. It doesn't matter what you think and how you think it. Just looking at the physical, the environment, the space, the geography, the topography, all of it, it is a colossal failure. And so this is why what really happened, it was as if it was deliberate. And deliberate from where or who or how, it doesn't even matter right now. It is how this happened. The view of what you could see, who the person and what the event was about and who the principal was, in terms of this is a former president, this is somebody who's now running to be president, about to be nominated. It's for me, and I hold on to this until I'm convinced otherwise. But something is just totally off on this. I don't see how an oversight like this could have happened. I don't see how you have the top security people in the world in a space like this, and that entire blind spot, which wasn't really a blind spot, was left without security coverage. I just don't see it. I can't make head or tail of that. Don't make no sense at all. So until I'm told otherwise, this is coordinated. This is planned. This was allowed to happen, and it doesn't matter from which perspective. It don't matter from which perspective. Whether you say who allowed it to happen is not the point. It is that it was allowed to happen. And this happened last night. I'd follow the news closely until, I went off to sleep. I woke up this morning and here I am. So I haven't had any deep conversations with anyone regarding this. This is my thinking. This is how I'm waking up. And this is how I was last night. I mean, or just as it happened yesterday, after, the initial, wow, look at what happened and what really happened here. After that, then not even an hour after that, my first thought was, how did this happen? And why did this happen? Where are the weaknesses? How did that, for me, and it's more than weaknesses, it's a deliberateness in all of this. There's a deliberateness. Okay. We're going to take a break and come back. Donald Trump is that the gunman who shot him last night is a 20-year-old named Thomas Matthew Crooks. And as I said before, we're told that he is a registered Republican. And he was later shot dead by the U.S. Secret Service sniper, one of these snipers. Obviously, as we said before, this happened at the rally in Pennsylvania yesterday. We saw his father, Matthew Crooks, telling, I think it was CNN, that he didn't know what the hell was happening. He's trying to, as a matter of fact, to quote him, he says he was trying to figure out what the hell is going on, and that he was waiting to talk to law enforcement before speaking. So at least 8 bullets fired last night from, this is what we're being told by the FBI. We heard those shots going off for those of us who were watching. 8 bullets from a rooftop, and this was just about 130 yards from where Donald Trump was on stage in Pennsylvania. And it happened just after 6 o'clock, probably about 6:15 or thereabouts. AR-style rifle, that's what we're being told also. And we understand that he was wearing merchandise promoting one of YouTube's most popular channels devoted to firearms, Demolition Ranch. This is being reported by NBC News. And also, the special agent, the FBI special agent in charge of the investigation said Crooks had been identified using DNA because he wasn't carrying an ID on him. Also said that state voter records showed that Crooks was a registered Republican, and that when he was 17 years of age, he donated $15 to Act Blue, which is a political action committee for supporting Biden. And this was on Biden's inauguration day, or the day before the inauguration. It's developing, and I suppose we'll hear more as the morning progresses. A member of the crowd was killed in that shooting. 2 others were wounded and are in critical condition. I thought I heard that, well, let me just go back and check that there was a second death, but I'm not sure, so I'll go back and check that. But the images coming out of all of Pennsylvania and the attempted assassination on Donald Trump are iconic. And I think, as I said earlier, that if you thought that the election wasn't decided up until Donald Trump took the stage in Pennsylvania yesterday, now you can just, get rid of those thoughts, because here we have an election decider. And it is what it is. There is a lot of anger. I noted that less than 15 minutes after the news broke that Donald Trump was shot, and we were watching still what's unfolding, I was also on all of the social media at the same time, checking to see what was happening. And less than 15 minutes after, on X, Elon Musk came out firing, guns blazing, literally, saying he supports Donald Trump 100%. He has now thrown his support behind Donald Trump. Of course, he has some, hundreds of millions of followers on X. It is his platform. It was always felt that he was going to throw his support. And there were persons who were asking for him to make his donations public in terms of who he was donating to and so on. And those requests were going to be formal requests as of this week. So I think there's something to read into it, Elon Trump's declaration. So we saw that. So he came out and said that he's supporting Donald Trump 100%. He's thrown his support behind him. There are different talking points in the United States this morning. The right and the left are holding two different positions, even though they're all saying violence has no place in politics and so on. But that is a great United States. They've had, it's not their first attempted assassination. They talk a lot about what happened in 1981 with Ronald Reagan. This is the first time they say since 1981. But I do recall, and remind me, didn't we see, there was an event that Trump was at not too long ago where he ducked down behind the podium. And I'm not quite sure why there was a sound and he ducked. I can't remember, the story around that. But I know, I'm not sure if you recall. If you do, let me know. But here is the situation. There is this tug of war this morning. These people have been vitriolic for the longest while. They have been calling for the assassination of each other. This is what has been happening in this election campaign in the United States. If it was happening in any other country, they would have intervened and bombed that country and supported coups and all of that. But it's happening with them, and everybody remains silent. But this was one of the most vitriolic, violence laden election campaign in the United States. It was as violent, it was as raw, it was as vulgar, it was as, just vitriolic as it gets. And around for the assassination of each other. As a matter of fact, when the Supreme Court ruled 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago, that a president was not liable or could not be held liable for decisions made, professional, official decisions made while in a president, there were many calls for the assassination of Donald Trump. People were saying, there was one journalist, I think, in the UK, but many on air in the United States were saying, well, that means that Joe Biden could order the assassination of Donald Trump and get away with it because it would be an official act. That's what they were saying. They were talking about taking him out. They were saying that. They were saying that on camera. They were saying that in our faces. So this is whether, regardless of how you think this happened, who did this, who organized or orchestrated this, the foundation, the environment, this whole thing was conducive to exactly whatever, whoever did happened last night. this attempted assassination, no matter which angle you take it from. So if you're on the side where you're saying it's a lone gunman and nobody else is involved in this and he was doing it for the hype, so the environment, the culture, just the space was rich for this to happen. It was conducive to this. If you're saying that somehow it was ordered through, the president and the CIA and the FBI and all of that, because we hear a lot of that too. So if you're saying that, then yes, this is an environment where that was quite likely. If you're saying that this is Donald Trump, this is what they did, because we see this in a lot of movies, right? An assassination attempt. As a matter of fact, there's a movie. It's interesting. What's the name of this movie? That is part of it is shot in Africa. And is it The Interpreter? I think it's The Interpreter. The Interpreter, that parts of it was also shot at the United Nations, or what looks like the United Nations. So I think it's The Interpreter, where this is the base of the movie, isn't it? Where an assassination attempt to be carried out on the president who was coming in from Africa in the United States, and then how that would ensure that he is reelected in Africa. So we see this as a lot of plots. I mean, this is in the movies, it's in books, it's a plot. It's it is something, and it really does work. So, and if you remember The Interpreter, there's a line in The Interpreter that speaks directly to this: a president who survives a near assassination cannot lose an election, right? So if you're thinking that is so this was coming from their end, well, yes, the environment, the spaces also made it possible. In any case, America, it makes you want to go back to, what's the Bobber's name? Donald Glover, who did that song, This Is America. Makes you want to listen to it again, So long, objectively, if there is such a thing in all of this, but you can be objective, take it from every single side that's out there. And because personally, I don't have a horse in this thing. My thing is just to look at it through my lens, and to say, what it is that I am seeing, and to try and understand it. So, but we need a lot more information to begin to understand what happened, how it happened. Is the biggest question for me right now. Is the how. It's a how of it. The why of it can't stay until much longer, but it's a how. And then I saw some reports out there saying that the Trump campaign had asked for additional security, but that they were denied by the Biden Secret Service. It's an interesting thing. I don't know if that is true, but that is also reporting that is out there now. Now, you can't even go with the media. Now you have to look closer to see which media you are consuming. This is where, last week as I was going off, I talked about media literacy. This is where media literacy comes in now. And, before you come down on a side, if you really want to be objective, then you have to know which media you're consuming. And how you know where that media stands and what kind of media you're listening to is, first of all, just Google who own it. And then Google that person or that corporation. For example, there's a man named Rupert Murdoch and the entire family who own about 90-odd%, or 80-odd at least percent of global media. And they are leaning far right. So racist, classist, Project 2025-ish, Heritage Foundation kind of situation, backing a right-wing philosophy. So when you come up on that media conglomerate, any media, in that conglomerate, you have media like Fox News, Sky, New York Post, The Sun, News International, TMZ, Page 6. We could go on. I mean, it's a very big, it's a massive part of global media that Rupert Murdoch owns. And an Australian who's, controls so much media. Then you go into, if you go Daily Mail and you're going with Lord Rothermere, who, is a monarchist, is a royalist and also right-wing. So you know what you're consuming there. And then, if you go CNN, NBC, CBS, MSNBC, you're now looking at far left. Well, they said they're left and center, but enough of them are just far left. So there's hardly anything center in this whole thing. So you have to now know how to balance what you're hearing with what you know. And I see everything through the lens of Africa. And my Africanness and my African-centeredness, so that I'm looking at this, as almost like, I'm in a busy tonight, but let me just look at it because it's a global, it's going to have global impacts anyway, and they do have these situations do tend to have that kind of a rebounding global domino effect kind of situation. We see South Africa jumping on. Cyril Ramaphosa put out one long statement, and so many other African governments and presidents and prime ministers have already said what they're saying. I'm not quite sure if anything has come out of Jamaica, but yeah. So I'm just saying that as we consume the media for the rest of this week, and especially today going into the coming week, the Republican convention and so on, to understand what we're hearing, what we're seeing, where people stand. Media literacy is important. It's important for us to know who's talking, what it is that what's their ideology. It's very, very important. And we're seeing this being rolled out this morning in a very serious way. We see it from last night. You see how long the left took to call this an assassination attempt. It's obvious it was an assassination attempt. Even if a US try to assassinate yourself, it's an assassination attempt. But even the headlines that they were rolling out, look at the headlines they were putting out. It was laughable because you had CNN and NBC and CBS and so the headlines they were putting out, they were saying that Trump had a fall. You had all kinds of people saying that he went down himself and then he got up by himself. And so they began immediately after this happened to craft the narrative. Not until the FBI came out at the presser last night to say this was an assassination attempt did they begin to say it was an assassination attempt. So you see how this is already unfolding. Then you have the right-wing media like Fox News and Sky News and even Sky Australia. They are coming out with all guns blazing, So how do you begin to look at this? It's up to you and your own ideology. But it's also good to know who's who. I'm going to quickly go to our brother Kwame Pianke in the United States, just for a quick update on what's happening there, and then to get his Pan-African perspective, because this is how we do things. We see things through a Pan-African lens. So Dr. Ajamo Naguaya will be coming on in a little while. Ajamo, my apologies. Let me just quickly go to our brother Kwame in the United States, and then I come right to you. Brother Kwame Pianke on the line. Morning and greetings, Brother Kwame Pianke.
Good morning. Good morning, Kabu. How are you this morning?
I'm well, if you two are well.
Yes, I am well.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us at such a short notice, Kwame. But as usual, really appreciate your insight and your perspective on global events. This, of course, that happened in the United States in Pennsylvania last night with what the FBI is calling the attempted assassination on President Donald Trump. First of all, what do you know? What's the latest?
Well, from what I've read, the shooter was on a roof outside of the secured perimeter. The shooter was sitting on a roof about 150 yards away. I know one observer said that they pointed out the shooter on the roof well before this happened, and the secret security and the police ignored their complaints. And then the other thing too is that the shooter was killed. According to the same observer, his head was blown off. So you saw the dead body on the roof. Again, according to observers, it was an AR-15 that was used, and it was a .223 size bullet that was used, and 5 shots were fired. So one, grazed Trump, one killed the lady behind him. Supposedly her brain matter was scattered after she was hit, and then I don't know what happened as a result of the other 3 bullets. So that's the initial reports that we have heard. What I'm surprised to learn is that secret security did not. I'm surprised that secret security allowed people on the roofs, even outside the secure perimeter. If you've been in those small towns outside of Pittsburgh, the roofs are pretty much low, essentially 2 stories high. So Butler's about 45 minutes outside of Pittsburgh, and I am familiar with that. Not Butler itself, I'm familiar with that general vicinity as I lived. My family, me and we lived there as I lived there as a child, basically in the Pittsburgh area. So those rural areas, it's pretty easy to secure those buildings had they been motivated to do so. So that's what I find interesting. This wasn't exactly hard. It's not like this is Trump speaking in the South Bronx several weeks ago. We have all these tall buildings. This is kind of interesting that this would occur in a small rural area like this.
Yeah, this is what I'm finding pretty interesting too. That a small area like that wasn't covered in terms of the security, and especially on top of those buildings, literally facing and overlooking the stage with the kind of principle you have. So lots of perspectives out there in terms of the reporting this morning. Your own thinking, if you will, through your Pan-African lens.
Yeah, I think the mainstream media was really reluctant to call it an assassination because I was actually listening to watching something on my phone. It said Trump attacked. I said okay, and then I found out that he was then it was shot, and it's funny that they refused to call it an assassination. But the first thing I said, and me and some of my friends spoke, I said this absolutely guarantees his election.
Of course,
absolutely guarantees his election because. If they were thinking of replacing Biden with Kamala, even though Kamala is supposedly very unpopular, she did stand a puncher's chance of beating Trump because the media would have protected her, right, and protected her regarding several gaffes that she has a tendency to make. But now this has turned Trump into a martyr. That iconic photo now of him using the white version, the Black Power salute after he gets shot. There's 2 photos. One where the view is taken from the center, projecting from the center of the stage. But there's one where a photographer takes a picture of him from the bottom of the stage, and that white version, the Black Power salute, is there's an American flag right above him. That's going to be on every MAGA supporters wall from here on out.
Listen, we're just going to have to call a spade a spade. It is iconic. It is one of those photographs coming out of anything that you think you've got this, then you've literally can do anything. I mean, this is iconic. I see this as they can do. It's a monument. It's as you said, a T-shirt. It is so much, and we are in agreement that. So this secures the elections for him, just about.
Yeah, and if I were a betting man, the odds would be so guaranteed for Trump. It's like if you bet $1, you'd only win 25 cents, right? So, and if this were a football match, they might even take the odds off the table. Right? So it's so guaranteed because the bookie's going to want to lose money on everybody betting on this. And then the other thing that's interesting is the voter turnout was probably going to be low this year. But now this has galvanized to me, the MAGA supporters, and they're going to be turning out, and even the ones on the fence are going to be turning out in droves.
Yes.
Yeah. Something I told my wife initially yesterday, because she was at the African World Festival where I lived in the Detroit area, and I told her once this happened, you better come home, right? Because I don't think we as Black people need to be in crowds in this country above 500 people. It's just we're too.
Why so?
Because for better or worse, we're associated with the Democratic Party.
And
it's just it's too easy of a target, even though we weren't the shooters, even though, we didn't participate in any of that stuff. It's just something right now, until the smoke clears, I don't think we need to be in any big crowds at this point.
Yeah.
Because I think, the fact that you hear that, Chief of Security ignored his complaints, had he been killed yesterday, it would have been a civil war in this country.
I heard journalists.
Not to say that.
No, I take the point. I heard journalists saying that people turned on them. That's the more liberal media outlets. They were saying that people there turned on them.
That is not a surprise because, of course, the Trump supporters feel that the liberal media demonized them, and you hear all the various things that Biden in his demented state saying Trump must be stopped, and Pelosi saying the same thing. She might be just as demented, that Trump must be stopped. And I'm going to put a little aside. Isn't it funny that the same Democratic Republican establishment wanted to remove Mugabe because he was too old, and Mugabe was clear of thought, towards the end. But yet you have all these octogenarians running, or at least I'm going to say running. They are the face of U.S. policy,
right?
And one is obviously having severe mental conditions, but yet the U.S. has to make comment on African leaders being too old, and they would like to see them removed. I find that very interesting.
Very interesting. And the global media, obviously protecting them just the same, as opposed to how we saw the global media weaponized against Mugabe or any other African leader who is over the age of 70, and met them reach 76, and it becomes you weaponize the global media against them. And here we have ATR and so on, as you say, the face of U.S. policy.
Yeah, in my view, and I don't believe in autocratic leaders. I'm going to say this, but if you are a good leader, you should stay in as long as you're capable. Right? If you are a good leader, I mean, so unfortunately, Africa has many bad leaders that stick around to their 80s and 90s. But if you're a good leader, you should stay in. You should stay in as long as you're capable of actually running things. But that aside, I think it's going to be very tense in this country for the next few months. And
the tension, it was already tense, wasn't it? I mean, what we saw unfolding with even the Democratic Party seeming to be imploding. In terms of the call for Biden to step aside, and then these calls.
And a lot of that is phoniness. Everybody knew Biden was. I think we spoke a couple weeks before. Everybody knew. I heard you make a comment a couple weeks before. Everybody knew Biden was had issues a few years ago.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Everybody with eyes to see could have seen this. So the fact is, the whole debate was essentially a setup. They wanted to get rid of him. They didn't want to have a Democratic primary process. And then the money boys wanted to install who they wanted to install as the candidate. I don't know who. I mean, I think they preferred people other than Kamala. But but unfortunately, with a lot of Black people leaving the Democratic Party, the remaining constituency that they have are a lot of older Black women that would have offended them. So the Democratic Party would have had no chance. But there's people who I think they wanted to install, particularly like Gretchen Whitmer, who's governor of Michigan. She's very much a corporate Democrat. She allowed the Flint prosecution case to expire, among other things. Here, they wanted Gavin Newsom as a replacement. And Gavin Newsom is tangentially related to Nancy Pelosi. I mean, he's like an in-law, right? So if you understand California, you got the Pelosi's, you have the Gettys, you have the Browns. The Gettys are oil people. They're all kind of intermarried and interrelated and whatnot. And Newsom is part of that crowd too. So he's well connected. So I think they wanted to pull somebody out at the last minute and put him in there. And I think they also want to preserve any hope of maintaining the Senate to counteract a possible Trump victory, right? The other thing I find interesting, and one of my friends said this too, he would not be surprised later if there are more attempts from Trump, but he would not be surprised if these attempts are from foreigners, Eastern Europeans. And I would like to add to him people connected with the UK, because NATO is the UK's project. And NATO, the UK does not want to see that falling apart.
Yeah.
And so I don't think we're done with the shocks yet, to be honest with you.
Wow. Well, let's see how this unfolds. Today's media coverage already shaping up to be almost like I've never seen anything so vitriolic in a very long time. On the right, they're coming out with guns blazing. On the left, they are saying...
Pardon the pun. Pardon the pun.
yeah. Oh, wow. And then, I like the term you use, that, the black, the white version of our Black Power symbol, a cultural appropriation again, but this is what it has been. We see this. This is an iconic picture, photograph, you call it what you will. This is what we're seeing this morning. Yeah.
It pushes the two Olympic runners out of the picture now. It was Tommy Carlos. I'm trying to remember the other one. From 1968, who did that big symbol. That was a symbol of Black Power, and Kwame Ture and all that stuff. And now that's going to completely push it out of the picture. That's like turning Jesus from black to white in one fell swoop.
You're the best. One fell swoop. We're reading the same books. We went to the same schools, obviously.
Exactly.
One fell swoop. When shall we three meet again in thunder, lightning, or rain?
Yes. What I'm going to find that's interesting, what is going to happen with Black or African countries? When I say African countries, I say the diaspora, with all this internal division in the West. And, so that it's going to be interesting to see what moves happen now. Particularly in places like ECOWAS and the alliance of the Sahelian states, too. I saw a speech yesterday on a channel where you had a black man who was speaking in front of Security Council logo, talking about how important it was for ECOWAS to re-engage the three countries, Niger, Mali, and come on, Vincent.
Burkina Faso.
Yeah, Burkina Faso. Yeah, exactly. And so he was going to do the three countries, and then he wanted those three countries to join. He said Faye is their guy to get them to rejoin ECOWAS from Senegal, right? I'll send you that video. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens now, because basically, out of desperation, the powers that be are giving up, are revealing their game.
Yes.
Right.
Not to talk about that, and I want to revisit this with you, Kwame, to look at that whole thing as it is unfolding there, and how Sierra Leone, and the Ivory and Cote d'Ivoire, how they are positioning themselves to, it appears to me, to protect that which the Sahel are throwing out. But we'll talk about that another time.
Exactly. But there is going to be a lot of counter movements based on the chaos in the West.
Of course.
From countries, and that's what I'm trying to connect this to the whole attempted assassination on Trump. And I also think that the security, I think both parties, despite, the Project 2025, both parties have ramped up authoritarianism. And so essentially, you're going to see the security state just ramped up in the United States now. Because you remember now, they talk about Trump replacing a lot of the political directorate, but what happened in the 90s with the Clinton administration, where they put all these neocons in power? Because the Clintons put the neocons in place, and then those neocons were used to prosecute the Iraq and Afghanistan wars, right? And so now you're seeing, even though Trump has a lot of neocons, this is just now a personal battle between, the Trump wing of the Republican Party the Bush wing versus the Bush wing of the Republican Party and the Clinton and Obama wings of the Democratic Party. And so once neither side is less authoritarian than the other. And in fact, if you look at the whole FBI thing about black identity extremists, it was Obama initiated it because they felt that there are too many African-centered types wanting black self-sufficiency and black self-determination.
That's right.
Trump
It was Obama who did that, and even Dr. Saleh was on that list.
Dr. Saleh was on that. I didn't realize that. I did not. And then Trump continued it, and then Biden has continued it. So this whole authority, for the Democrats to be waving their arms, this new Hitler-like authoritarian is coming. No, they all do the same thing. Remember, you have a country that is financially falling apart, and it started falling apart in 2019, that's where you had the vice president of BlackRock, what was his name, Hildebrand, talking about helicoptering money to the people, and then we had COVID, and then we're back again with the increase in the yield rates, at least the recent increase. So the bond yields of the U.S. Treasury have gone down in the past couple of weeks. You're having problems with the repo market, again, similar to 2019. You have an economy that's falling apart, and I'm paraphrasing a commentator named Gerald Salenti. He said, when people lose everything, they lose it. And so now you have a country that's teetering on the brink. So they have to wrap. Sorry to carry you too long.
Putin feels that, and he said that so they're going to now pull out the bird flu pandemic to mitigate. This is what he thinks, so we're going to have another lockdown, another pandemic because of where all of this is going, and this is going to be bird flu. But let us watch and see. Thank you so much.
Exactly, because now they're testing these poultry workers.
Yes.
They they now claim they have bird flu, which again now drives up inflation. If I buy 2 little small Scandal bags from a grocery store, that's $115 US. And the inflation is very sky high right now. And I can afford it. What about the family that can't afford it?
That's the
point. What are they doing?
I'm so sorry that we're totally out of time. Brother Kwame Pianki, thank you so much, my brother, as usual. We continue this conversation as soon as possible.
Yes.
Enough respect. Thank you so much.
Enough respect. Take care. Bye-bye.
Enjoy.
I don't have a horse in the race for Euro 2024. It's England and Spain, and it doesn't matter to me one way or the other. Even though I kind of wish that Spain win over. Just saying, for many reasons, it's going to be Spain. Just to preempt our conversation, just with that link to the United States. Welcome to the Africa Forum, and thank you so much for joining. You there, brother? No, I'm not getting him. Tell me what's happened. Outside of the hurricane, we saw a young sister, a young girl, who on her social media pages, TikTok, was where I saw her, in a setting, looks like a United States setting. There's a private plane involved in this, and a private jet, boarding that private jet, but putting a note to say that when you live in Jamaica, and I'm paraphrasing, and a hurricane is coming and you abandon Jamaica, and then you return before the hurricane, and then you return to Jamaica, and to pretend as if nothing has happened, and then laughing at that with her friends. And this has led to a conversation in Jamaica about uptown Jamaica and downtown Jamaica, and the two Jamaicas, and middle-class Jamaica, and so on and so forth. And so we want to have this conversation with Dr. Ajamu Naguaya about classism in Jamaica, looking at class in the Jamaican society. This is nothing new. We know Race, Class, and Social Control is an interesting book written by Patrick Bryan, which I think all of us should be reading. But one of the things that I have foregrounded here in this space, time and time again, is the extent to which class and classism in Jamaica is dictating political policies, religious policies, economic policies, socio-economic policies, and the extent to which class is determining access to spaces, whether it is access to the beach, to the green spaces, access to leisure, all of that, the extent to which class determines your level of education and your access to education here in Jamaica, the extent to which class determines your access to just about every single thing. Colorism being part of that. So I'm not quite sure what's happening, but if you could tell me, because we're standing by for Dr. Ajamu Nagwaya, and if you can tell me if we have him on the line. I am not sure. Let me know what's happening. Maybe 809 in the Africa Forum Book Club. And I'm reminding you of it. Written by Patrick Bryan, at the time senior lecturer in history at the University of the West Indies when this was published. The book called The Jamaican People, 1880 to 1902, Race, Class, and Social Control. Jamo?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you so much.
Now, please forgive me. I was charging the phone and got caught up in some morning tasks. When you're on the farm, it's so easy to get lost in time.
I know. Wow.
Please forgive me for that.
Yes.
I was hoping I checked the time. I'm like, holy cow, like, what happened?
Well, listen, because we preempted our conversation with taking about 15 minutes out of your time with Kwame Pianke, just looking at what is unfolding in the United States with what we're hearing is an attempted assassination in Donald Trump, but looking at it through the Pan-African lens.
That's a non-event because you kill Trump, it's still imperialism operating. You put Obama, you put Kamala there. It doesn't matter who is there. The system is there oppressing us. So, as Muta Baruka said, killing leaders is not the solution. We have to kill the system. So those are non-events. We can analyze it and say, okay, what it means and things. It just means that he may get more sympathy from his right-wing supporters who will come out and support him more because they are trying to get rid of our deliverer, So some people look at it, but for we, the oppressed, it's a non-event. The system we want to bring down, not personalities.
Yeah, one or the other, it is, and that is one of the reasons why it is important for us when we're looking at global events to understand it from our perspective within our context and to see what it means for us or not. So I agree with you on that. Either way, it doesn't matter who is in power in the United States. For us, it remains the same. The system is what it is.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, my brother, which I just played, you requested Down Presser Man by Peter Tosh for this discussion this morning. There were 3 songs you requested. 2 we can play, 1 we cannot play. The one that we cannot play, we probably need to tell people to please go and read the lyrics. It's important to go we can't play it, but go read it anyway. And that was, that's Anthony B's,
Fire Upon Rome.
Fire Upon Rome.
Yeah.
Go for the lyrics. Why these songs this morning? Why this request?
Because it came out of some information that I shared with people within my circle about the 21 major capitalist families that dominate and control Jamaica's economics. And some people look at it and say, oh, up here Chinese and Syrian, Lebanese, whites, or even East Indian, but Africans are really dead, and yet Jamaica has over 90% African people. Mm-hmm. So people look at it in a racial lens because many people are influenced by the colonizers and the oppressors' approach to politics by putting out a race-first doctrine. So we as the Down Press also embrace race-first. What that does, it masks the class relationship, the most important feature of a capitalist society, the relations between the Down Press and the oppressor capitalist class. Mm-hmm. So, race first tend to mask that because we're all seeing that, Africans are not among the dominant economic class in Jamaica, not realizing that even if Africans are operating these capitalist companies, they will exploit African sufferers as wicked and viciously as the Asian or white capitalists.
Help our listeners to understand
bring
this. Help our listeners to understand classism. What is class? Help our listeners within the Jamaican context. When you talk about class as opposed to race and race first.
Okay, when we talk about class, for example, when we talk about class, we're talking about the groupings in society and how some of us look at it. When we when we deal with class, we're dealing with one's relationship to the means of production. And when we talk about the means of production, we're looking at the tools, the machinery, the plants that are out there to create economic activities or to create products or services. Also, we're looking at the natural resources and raw material. In a capitalist society, the productive resources, the things that we need to produce goods and services are largely in the hands of individuals or organizations like capitalist cooperation. Out of that, develop class relations that those who own the means of production that enable us to produce goods and services employ or buy the labor of the laboring classes in order to produce the wealth. Without workers, there can be no wealth. But yet they are the most despised and marginalized in a capitalist society.
Mm-hmm.
So in the workplace now, they have to produce profit, and it's out of that profit that the owning class are able to exercise economic and political power throughout society. So it starts out in the workplace, but that also extends into the wider society. So when the sufferers in Jamaica or the United States realize that they can't get the type of policies that they want and programs that would make life better for them, whether it's having access to free post-secondary education, university and college education, having access to free pharmacare, so that when you're sick and you get a prescription, you just bring the prescription to the pharmacy and you don't have to pay to your pocket because it's provided by the state. These things are possible.
Mm-hmm.
It means that when we go to a community center, we shouldn't have to pay to our pocket. Or when we take public transportation, if we had a different society where it was about meeting the needs of the people, and the people were directing how government programs should be organized, we would use tax revenue to finance services so that the poor don't have to dip into their pocket to get the necessary services to survive. So what we're looking at, those of us who come from a more revolutionary, left-wing, socialist perspective, we see two dominant classes coming out of this economic arrangement. The bourgeoisie, or the capitalist class, or the working class, the sufferers, some people call them the proletariat, that are the ones that sell their labor. So there's an antagonistic relationship between both of them, because just like Walter Rodney in his book, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, asserts that in order for Europe to develop and become industrially powerful and rich as a region, and we can include North America in it, Africa also had to be underdeveloped because the resources that are produced in Africa, extracted as natural resources, the profits generated, they are shipped to Europe in order for it to rise up, which at the same time push down Africans. It's the same type of relationship that we have between the owning class and the working class. So that develops that antagonistic, conflictual type of relationship. So for me, as part of the down press, when we look at the capitalist owning class, we see them as our class enemies. But many of us don't see them as our class enemies. We see them as people that we want to copy. We want to mimic them. We want to be like them. We want a big house on the hills. And we want a Mercedes-Benz. We want to be like the down press. Even though the consequences are devastating for society to have this type of overconsumption. We don't care about that. We want to be.
And
like
that's why the neoliberal agenda works so well, because they understand that thinking of people wanting to be. So if one person can crawl out of the down pressed and be recognized by the ruling class, then that is seen as prosperity. So the definition of prosperity is that, and if you look down on that, then you become bad mind. That's a situation that we have here in Jamaica. But I want to take a quick break and come back and ask you a little bit about how classism work in Jamaica, how you see it work. You mentioned the 21 families. I want to come back to that too and have that conversation. Let me take a quick break. Aims to nullify its current 3-year wage agreement with the government, according to court documents. LaSonia Harrison immediate past president of the Jamaica Teachers Association, and I'm reading from the Gleaner, contends in the lawsuit that the virtual special delegates vote held in March last year to accept the wage offer presented by the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service was in breach of the JTA's constitution. And so this is interesting information that's coming from the Daily Gleaner, from the Sunday Gleaner right now, Brother Ajamo, because this was a vitriolic, if you remember, and contentious vote. There are so many who did not agree with it, but it seemed to have been pushed through anyway. As we talk about classes, and we find our teachers in a position here on the island where I remember when we were growing up, when we were children, infant school, the teacher was somebody who had status in Jamaica. Come to find now in 2024, where this is one of the professions where the teacher is hardly even recognized, not by students and definitely not by the state.
Yeah, and neoliberal capitalism has much to do with that in terms of a kind of deprofessionalization of teachers, that now what teachers are experiencing in the workplace across the world is a working class experience, because for a long time they thought they were part of the middle class or the petty bourgeois sector of the class system. But when they look at, they don't have a lot of autonomy of setting their work, because teaching to the test and ministry regulation kind of abort the autonomy, professional autonomy that teachers once had. They're just like regular workers. They're decision takers. Mm-hmm. So a lot of teachers will say, we're not really educating students. We're just teaching them to pass tests, because that's what capitalism wants. It wants workers who are ready to slave on the plantation or the work in the workplace. Mm-hmm. That's what it will be. So teachers are experiencing that type of what would I say, a kind of re-working class experience, because they're always workers, but they gave them status to make them feel like they're better than the working class, but they're truly working class. Because I remember as a graduate student at the University of Toronto, I was working with some teachers who were working in a master's degree, and the way they describe their work life is very much reflective of working class experience, but they identify themselves as part of the middle class because that's what they've been told. But their actual work life represents that of a factory worker or domestic worker. They don't control their work situation, and the profit made from the work that they do goes to other forces outside themselves. They have no say in how we share the profit, even though they're critical to training the future workers and the ones who train the current workers that we have.
Brother John, I want to look at the 21 families you mentioned, because we know this is something that we hear over and over and over again. Is this still what obtains here on the island?
It is very much the case. And when we talk about classism in Jamaica, and we're talking about the African majority here and African people in the Caribbean, we have to start with the enslavement. African people were enslaved because of capitalism's need for a reliable, regulated, regimented, available workforce in the Caribbean to extract economic wealth in mines, on plantations. That was the reason why we were enslaved, not racism. Racism becomes a justification, an ideological justification on why we should be enslaved, but it's for an economic reason that it happened. If we look at the papal bull in 1552, issued by Pope Nicholas V, and he gave the right to Portugal to go and capture territories that are not under Christendom. There was nothing about the inferiority of the people. They not being Christians, and that was the main reason. But the papal bull, and they call it the doctrine of discovery, authorized Portugal to even enslave the people abroad in order to capture their economic resources to enrich the capitalist class, the emerging capitalist class, as well as Europe. There's nothing about racism in it. Racism, as we know it, developed later, but capitalism was a motivating force for enslavement of African people. So now when we come to the Caribbean and we're looking at the present time, it's that same old capitalist system at work. When people talk about don't press a man, what, where you're going to run to. He's talking about capitalist operators here in Jamaica. Same thing when Anthony B, bonfire upon Rome and a bonfire upon the one as done bonfire upon Wood Stewart. He's burning fire on capitalist economic operators in Jamaica, exploiters of the working class. This is not something a guy can sue one for because they are capitalists, and in order for them to become wealthy, they must exploit the labor of the working class. Mm-hmm. So you can say that to them anytime, anywhere in Parliament, in front of them face. There's no basis that they can sue you when you tell them that they are capitalist exploiters robbing the wealth of the working class. They may just see that as a freedom of speech, and this is not something that they can ban. Mm-hmm. If you organize your word sound in a certain way, because it's a factual thing.
And so what Anthony B did with that song, because I remember I was front and center in defending Anthony B against the Broadcasting Commission ban on Fire Upon Rome. I remember interviewing him. I remember getting a letter of suspension because of the stance that I took on that song at the time. I thought that song needed to be played, that you had to do with the same kind of families that we're talking about. This is what I'm saying to our listeners. I think that ban is still in effect. So go and Google Anthony B's Fire Upon Rome. Listen to it yourself, but before you listen to it, read the lyrics and see what he's saying. And even the conversation that is in the space now of this young person who, in a very delusional classist state, could post on the social media that there's a hurricane coming and we take a private plane and we go foreign and come back after abandon Jamaica and come back after the hurricane finished as if nothing happened, and thought that was funny, even though I understand that she's apologized since then. The apology really it means nothing, because in the wider context there is still this dominance, and I wanted to talk about that a little, Ajamo, and to go back to say that you mentioned the 21 families. This is something, the very fabric of our Jamaican economic society, or socioeconomics, built up on this classist structure, and because of our capitalist, it's a capitalist society. Can we even be other without the classism? Can we see Jamaica now with really committed to the neoliberal agenda? Doesn't that even make it worse? Where do we go from here in terms of beginning to address classism, and how do we address classism?
Well, a fundamental part of it is what we're doing here and trying to raise the consciousness of people. Since the emergence of capitalism, and especially like in the 19th century, the working class has had a problem of limited class consciousness. Wealthy people is like instinctively, but it's not instinctively, it's how they're socialized. They have a high level of class consciousness. And what class consciousness is you being aware of membership in a particular class, and that you have interests that are separate and apart from that of your opponent. So if you're from the bourgeoisie or the capitalist class, you know that you exist as a class with special interests, and those interests are in conflict with that of the working class. For you to move up, it means you have to push them and keep down the working class or the sufferers in order for you to be wealthy. They know that. The working class, on the other hand, has a low level of class consciousness, that they don't see themselves as a part of a class with separate interests that are in conflict with that of the bourgeoisie or the capitalist class. So that is why in Jamaica you can find the People's National Party, the Jamaican Labour Party, being mass parties populated largely by the working class. They are mass parties, but they're under bourgeois or capitalist middle-class leadership. The leadership of the PNP, the leadership of the GLP comes from that class. The petty bourgeois, the bourgeois sector of society. But most of the people who are members in these two parties are the sufferers. If you have a high class consciousness as a working class person, you wouldn't be supporting capitalist parties such as the PNP and the GLP because they're not in your interest. You would go and create your own working class party with the objective of bringing down capitalism and establishing a just society. That would be your thing. So you would not even because you will not find the capitalists unless that capitalist has committed class suicide, as Amilcar Cabral articulates. That's the only way they would join the ranks of the oppressed, because they're no longer connected with their bourgeois class location, and they're now saying we're front and center with the working class. That's happening. There's only few people from the capitalist class who commit class suicide. But working class people in Jamaica don't have that. I mean, all across the world, in the United States, in Canada, we have a low level of class consciousness. So we need to raise our consciousness. And by having these type of reasoning, it can also help to open people's eye. When people listen to a song like Don't Press a Man, they will instinctively know that it's talking about the class conflict between the working class and the bourgeoisie. When they listen Bob Marley's, lyrics to his song, we and them are working out. We have to pay for the innocent blood that has been spilled every day. That's a part of the class conflict, and that's how we'd read it. But when we listen to it, for example, a song like Crazy Bald Head, we barely listen to the lyrics, but that's also a song about class conflict, because I build a cabin, I plant the corn. Didn't my people before me slave for this country? No, you look me with a scorn. The corn represents wealth. We create the wealth, but all you do is, we build a prison, you put us in it. We build institutions for poor people, and that is where you put us. We would see it in terms of class conflict. So we need to raise our awareness of class reality in Jamaica and to see things as such. But we don't. Race first becomes like the guiding light to understanding relations in Jamaica. So that is why in Jamaica, instead of talking about the 21 families or the capitalist class in Jamaica, we are focusing on Chinese capitalism in Jamaica. Even though Chinese capitalism has a smaller footprint than Western capitalism in Jamaica, it has a smaller footprint than economic footprint than the 21 families in Jamaica. We focus on China's capitalism.
Do we know the 21 families? Do we know who the 21 families are?
Their people are known: the Isas, the Mahfouds, the Ashenaim, like all, the Azan, the Hart. These are people that we are aware of. So when we talk about even, Lasco is owned by one of the dominant families in Jamaica in terms of the economic spread. So we are aware of them, but they're like invisible. The thing about, and this is all over the world, the lives of the wealthy are invisible. In Jamaica, where do the money hubs play? We don't know. Their lives are very private, because when I tell people that I see places like Beverly Hills, right now, the people who are wealthy are moving out of there, because once DJs can have money to live in Beverly Hills, you have to run away, because it means that they are coming, they're invading. We have to go somewhere where we live on a hill, and for us to even build a house there, we may have to spend $70 million building fortification on the hill, leveling places. Poor people can't come there, and you can build your wall of China around your dwelling, and you can keep yourself away from the poor. But where do these people play? Where you can see that as a family member talking about and doing a class flex, showing us, I don't have to see it in Jamaica when they have a hurricane. I can go
with a private jet as a backdrop. But isn't all right? So we have, for example, our tourism ministry, which is now embarking in a way that we have never seen. Well, maybe in the early days. This is coming back now with a kind of a Cuba under Batista situation, in elitism tourism, classism tourism, or classist tourism, where they're talking about elegant corridors, where they have run people off beaches. For example, take this area now that they're developing in St. Anne, where they have driven the people off the reggae beach, and all of that now is becoming high-end, upscale. You can't visit, you can't ever be able to afford to go there. This is the kind of tourism we see developing now across Jamaica. And Jamaica is investing in that seriously. So that it seems to me as if this whole classism business in Jamaica is getting worse before it gets better, because the idea of prosperity is also it seems to me, and you can tell me what your thoughts are on this, seems to somehow be centered in classism.
Well, once you live in a capitalist society, everything in it goes through the class system. Everything in it can be seen through the class system. So it's nothing new. It is just with the availability and the spread of social media, we are seeing things, and we're not dependent on the capitalist media to tell us what's going on. We can create content and circulate things, because even just the reason about the 21 family, it's a woman who puts it out, and even she puts it out in a very backward way, her narration, like she's lauding the success of these capitalist operators, even capitalist operator from the Hart family that came to Jamaica in the 18th century to enslave Africans. She's seen that as a great economic success. An African woman can be praising her being enslaved by a white capitalist enslaver and see that they have created economic miracle in Jamaica based on your back, and you're describing it in these positive ways. So the loss of consciousness.
You're talking about the raising. That's why you talk about raising the awareness, class awareness, understanding,
and also it must inform our behavior. Because it's one thing for us to say, okay, we should do this. For example, it would be like you have some academics talking about ITIL food and how Rastafari influenced the culture around eating right and the importance of a plant-based diet. But that academic could make a career out of it, but still remain a meat eater. Even though they're talking about ITIL food and the virtue of it, and it's something that the doctor ordered, they are still meat eaters. So it's not only raising consciousness, but our behavior must change.
So you're saying then that this classist structure that we have on the island is protected and fiercely protected by some by all, apparently, even those who are oppressed, and the academic class, the political class, that it seems to me that it is seriously protected by even those who are being down-pressed.
Yeah, it is, because we have to look at the role that the capitalist state plays in capitalist society. And this is same in England and same thing in Canada or Britain or Sweden. The capitalist class has two major functions. Some people say it has a third function in terms of claiming a monopoly on the use of violence. But all states claim a monopoly on the use of legitimate violence. They don't like competition unless they delegate it to you. But the two main functions of a capitalist state, if we're talking about the governmental system, the judiciary system, is to create an environment where the capitalist companies can make profit, or what Marxists would call to facilitate capital accumulation. It doesn't mean to generate profit and the wealth from the economic system. So it must create policies and programs to facilitate that. The second function of the capitalist state is to create legitimation of the system. And by legitimation, you mean that to make the system acceptable in the eyes of the people. So they will create programs that tie the working class to the very system that are oppressing them. So when they will create, for example, they will create free university education, that is a way for us to feel positive about the state. If they create a national healthcare system so you don't need to dip in your pocket when you go to the doctor or hospital, you'll feel good about the state. But all of these things also make the condition positive for the capitalists to make profit, but also it ideologically binds us to the system of oppression that we are experiencing. So we feel good about it. And sometimes there's tension between these two functions, trying to cater to the capitalist class, because sometimes you have to go and you tell them, no. We need a minimum wage. We can't pay the workers and below this. They need a little thing to survive and come to work the next day. So some of the capitalists say, we don't want minimum wage, we're against that. But at the same time, when you create a minimum wage law, the people will feel government is for us, they're working and protecting us. But no, they're protecting the system, because if it's left up to the capitalist class, it will create the condition for revolution. Because the people are so down-pressed that they're more receptive to the revolutionary messages that come from people who are organizing for change in society. So there's that thing going on. But capitalist class relations is a staple of a society such as Jamaica. It's nothing new. it's been presented before our eyes in a way that I say, man, this is what they're doing. But the problem is that even though we see it, we want to be like them. You notice in Jamaica, the big house phenomenon or the big house vibration that we find in society, everybody wants a big house.
Mm-hmm.
That is coming from the great house tradition in Jamaica, where the enslaver built the great house, big house, on the highest point of the estate so that they can look over their dominion. And we have the same thing. We want a big house on the hills. And if you have a family of only 4 people, what you do in your house with them, 12 rooms, 4 or 5 bathrooms, when you're in your 60s or 70s,
so it really calls for a you call it awareness, a paradigm shift, and you say well, it begins with conversations like these, and we hope that people will pick it up from here and take it into your homes and your verandas, in the town squares, whichever you're talking about, because we are locked into this classist structure on the island, and we keep thinking that we can crawl out, like the children of Sisyphus, that unless we become aware of where we are, then what we are locked into will remain, because it suits someone, don't it? People benefit from this.
It does.
So how do you shake this?
We have to shift it through the reasoning, but also through the practice. We have to practice economics in a different way. So instead of one person going and owning and owning businesses and employing people, we collectively create worker-owned businesses so that the people who are creating the wealth have a say in how the wealth is distributed among themselves and in the community. Those same people have a say in organizing work life. So from the shop floor decision of even hiring new members to more strategic decisions like, should we introduce this technology? Should we expand the size of the business, or should we downsize the business? Those decisions would be made by the workers, those who are in the business. So and that is contrary to capitalism, because in capitalist societies, the workers have no say over strategic decisions. They have no say over how we share the profit or the surplus from collective labor. That's the domain of the capitalist class and the senior managers that are a part of it. So we have, and remember, Jamaica has experienced with worker ownership, because in the 1970s, under the activism of the social action center, the Jesuit center, they influenced Michael Manley to create worker cooperatives in the sugar sector, in the sugar production section, not the industrial part of it. So here in Jamaica, on a large scale, a major economic asset was under worker ownership. There are problems with it, because even within Manley's own regime, they were opposed to having people who are coming from enslaved background. Their ancestry, was rooted in enslavement in the Caribbean, were owning this major industry that brought them here as enslaved workers. So we have that as an example of what we can do. But we have also examples of worker ownership all over the world. It is possible. So not only must we criticize what's wrong, we must also create alternatives.
While
we're living under this Babylonian order.
We're going to leave it there. Thank you so much, Dr. Ajamu, my brother. We will continue this conversation. It is important to me. I think that we need to continue this conversation in this space.
No, absolutely.
With you. Thank you so much, my brother.
Give thanks.
All right. Brother Ajamu there. Government will block that too. And good point. This is something that we have to continue a conversation on, but we must begin to talk about it at the primary level, at the infant level, at the high schools. Yes, it must be taught, because if we're going to pull ourselves out of this, and if you read Black Skin, White Mask, you get an indication of the extent to which, out of all the Caribbean countries, when you talk about classism, Jamaica presents as one of those countries with a classic situation where classism is firmly in place, and viciously and violently protected, so that if it looks just in any way that it is being challenged, then you see how governments are literally kicked out, how operatives are kicked out, how manufacturers, how workers or industries are closed down. Just look at Jamaica. The extent to which an ordinary, a Jamaican can enter certain sectors, money-making sectors, economic sectors on this island, financial sectors on this island, is dependent on whether or not certain classes, certain people will allow them to enter. And this is why no matter how Rastafari and Jamaican people are knocking on the door of this new ganja industry that is now being decriminalized and legalized, there is just no entry. And you're wondering, you tear your hair out. You're wondering, how do I get my foot in the door? And the barriers to entry are insurmountable. It's prohibitive. And you look around you and you see the very same people who are involved in the capitalist structure or responsible for this capitalist structure on the island. You see these very same people claiming and owning the ganja industry, medicinal ganja and other kind of ganja industry here on the island, and you wonder how that works. This is a structure that is well protected and violently supported even by the oppressed. The political class and the political structure is set up in such a way also to ensure that it remains in place. So whether it is PNP or JLP, it's a neoliberal agenda. It's a capitalistic neoliberal agenda, and it is what it is. So what do we do? That is a question.
Safe, reliable, great value. Always buy from an author.
1880 to 1902, Race, Class, and Social Control, written by Patrick Bryan. So the Jamaican people, 1880 to 1902, Race, Class, and Social Control. I see where the Archbishop of Canterbury is coming to Jamaica to talk about reparations and slavery and so on. Now, I want to say very clearly that those who are protecting the systems of enslavement and the systems of colonization and oppression should not be welcomed on this island in any way to talk about no reparations or slavery or nothing. That until the Anglican Church, which is headed up by the King of England, Charles of England, that until the Anglican Church stop its platitudinous peroration, that we should not be welcoming the Archbishop of Canterbury or anyone like that who supports a system of oppression, who is a part of a system of ongoing colonization onto this island to talk to us about no reparations. I think that they're taking us now for the idiots that we're appearing to be, that we are so. It's another thing with us is that our inferior complex, that we're bought into this inferiority complex, that unless they are talking to us about the fact that they themselves enslaved us, and then coming now with the white savior mentality, and we embrace them and are making spaces for them to come talk to us about reparations. We don't need no conversation about reparation. The Anglican Church must do what the Anglican Church must do. You facilitated slavery. The monarch facilitated slavery. The monarch was the head of the Anglican Church. The Church of England was headed by the monarch from Henry VIII until today. So our job is not to welcome the Archbishop of Canterbury or anybody from the church to come sit down and talk to us about no slavery and no reparations. They know what they must do. In the same way that we see England dealing with Israel in terms of reparations. There was no sit down, there's no sitting down. What they do is make monies available, put systems in place to ensure that the Jews who called for reparations, that they are given that without even asking for it. So I don't see why the Archbishop of Canterbury is coming into Jamaica to talk to us about no reparations. We bond that. We'll have none of that. We should not be welcoming anyone from the Church of England to come sit down in Jamaica to talk to us about no reparations.
Only Optical
Bam, you know, hear me. Hey, watch now. You never hear. Yeah. There. So here we go on now. Like, share, and subscribe. Is it, people? One of them thing there. Boy, me I tell you, it no easy, it no look good. No. Yeah, man. You don't know the thing. Go like, share, and subscribe.
Bear with us. So Selena Carty is a cultural and ancestral genealogist and global war heritage specialist, identity and empowerment consultant, and founder of Black Poppy Rose CIC, is on the island and has been doing great works here. I'll tell you what they are when she comes on, because she has done some research, and what she's found, she's sharing with Jamaica, and has also come to have a specific meeting with Liberty Hall on this. So we want to go to the phone lines where our sister Selena is standing by. Hopefully we can get her on the line right now. And Eugene Kelly, I know that you're standing by also, so please bear with us while we just quickly have this conversation with Selena, and then to come to you, because we want to talk about the Marcus Garvey naming, I think, the KSMAC, the part of the KSMAC, the Marcus Garvey, or naming it after Mwalimu Marcus Messiah Garvey. So we're standing by to speak with Selena Carty. Can you tell me what's happening? Selena Carty, our next guest.
When I need to order concrete for my...
Who is a cultural and ancestral genealogist and global war heritage specialist, identity and empowerment consultant, and founder of Black Poppy Rose CIC. She's on the island from the UK. She educates people worldwide about the historical timelines of the African, Black, West Indian, Caribbean, Pacific Islands, and indigenous nations' efforts in wars, revolutions, and rebellions since the 16th century. For a decade and a half, Selena has been encouraging communities to observe their genealogy, histories, and patterns found in their immediate societies and beyond, and is now on the island. Her knowledge has been sought after by Channel 4 in the UK to discuss genealogy and the role of Pharaoh Queen Hatshepsut of the 18th dynasty in the ancient Kemet, which is now known as Egypt. So much more about her. And we go to the phone lines now where she's standing by. She's president of the History Society, co-founder of Black to the Future Outdoor Learning Initiatives, and is the BAME student representative in which history department? But we have history department here. Selena, good morning, my sister.
Good morning, Sister Kabu. Thank you.
All right, we're just trying to get everything in, right? Because there's so much that you do, just so much to you. Let me welcome you. One of the things that I like about what you do, though, is focus also on decolonization in education. But we want to talk to you about what you're doing on the island right now, and specifically as it relates to Mwalimu Marcus Messiah Garvey.
Wonderful. So I work with Dr. Julius Garvey, who is the second son of Marcus Garvey, as his genealogist with my partner, Latoya Williams. So we have presented Jamaica for the first time in 84 years since Marcus Garvey died, his certified death certificate.
Ah, that's interesting, because one would have thought that was already in place. So give us a backstory to that.
So Marcus Garvey died for he's been dead for 84 years. I've been alive for 42 years. So that's half of the time that he's been away. And I would have assumed that also. But when I came into contact with Dr. Julius last year, because he works on a project, many projects, but one in particular called Marcus Garvey in schools, to be able to teach children from, as little as 3 to start thinking about philosophies and opinions and their self-identity around their concepts of who they are and how they understand people around them. And he asked me to look into his mother's family tree. So Amy Jakes Garvey, and to be able to produce a family tree for the community so they have something of her forever, that legacy. But then, because I was born in England, I asked him, has he ever seen his father's death certificate? And he said no. So I said, I'll get that for you. And I'm somebody, if I'm going to put my efforts towards something, I'm going to do that, because there's nothing that's beyond any of us if we just set ourselves, the right kind of energy, I guess, to put into it. So when I got the death certificate, because he died in England in 1940 during World War II, I took it to Dr. Julius last year when he was 90, and he had never seen it before.
Wow.
And as a genealogist, the aspect of bringing families together is to try and complete kind of a birth and death legacy, to be able to kind of look at what's happened in the lifetime, and then to look at the inspiration that's come afterwards, and to not know how your father died specifically, that's something that's missing, that many people may not understand that they are missing that.
Yeah, and I remember going through with the RGD, my own genealogy here, and I remember when we did that live on air, and I remember when the manager, when she came in, the genealogist with my great grandmother's death certificate, I cried on air because it was such, I didn't know it would affect me in that way, to say, well, yes, I know she lived, and we understand ancestral spirit and the whole process of what it means to transcend. But then when you see that, it just brings something home to you. I can just imagine how Dr. Julius Garvey felt at that time, knowing the kind of person he is and the connection he has to his father. What did he say?
He said, I've never, his reaction wasn't as vibrant as ours would be, right?
Yes.
But he was like, it's funny that I didn't know this. And then he started talking about his journey as an adult, because his father died when he was 7, just before his 7th birthday. And he was talking about his choices and his path of academia and of his profession. And he said he could have gone into another profession, but he went into cardiothoracic vascular surgery. So he became a surgeon. And then he learned his father died of cardiac failure due to hypertension.
And this is written on the death certificate?
It says on the death certificate, cause of death, cardiac failure due to hypertension. And then it talks about it being certified after post-mortem without inquest. It highlights who was there, who registered the death. It talks about his occupation. He was a journalist, the address where he died. But with the information now kind of finalizing, we look at so much literature that we have, so much information, even on Wikipedia. There is nothing out there that tells us how Marcus Garvey died, specifically from a document that is an official, the official base. So we know where he was born, we know his birth, but we didn't have his death certificate until last year. And now Jamaica has it now.
Yes, and we're glad that you did that research. Where did you? What was that process like? How difficult was it?
Well, when it comes to me, things that are really difficult. It's just navigating through the steps. So it was to find out. So I went to St. Mary's Cemetery in Kensal Green, where he was buried in the lower catacombs. So I was able to get access to the records of where his name would have been listed, who would have listed him, the reverend who would have performed the spiritual for him to be put into the lower catacombs. Look at the date of when his body was taken out. So kind of go on that journey. And then the borough of where he was buried didn't connect to where his house was. So he was buried in Kensal Green. His house was in West Kensington. But because it said that he was a practicing Catholic, he was buried in a Catholic cemetery. So I looked at all of those connections and that connectivity, and then his borough. And then I sought online to look for the records where you could find the records online. And I did that, and then I made an application, and that application was successful. And within 4 weeks, they posted me the death certificate, the certified death certificate for Marcus Messiah Garvey.
Wow. I know you make it sound simple.
Well, that's what I say about the things, but it's easier to just give it, because there are no real railroads. But anything I come up with, I think what do I do next? How do I get to this next step? You know, if somebody says to me, oh, no, you can't have it, that's fine that you're telling me I can't have this. But I know that I can access something in a particular way to then get me to the next step. So that's what I work towards, and that's what I work on. So even with the death certificate, you know, right now I'm working with America and Canada for records that they have available there that we have not yet received or have seen, which can only be done through a genealogical sphere, to be able to look at how we can start building a narrative around Marcus Garvey, the father, as opposed to Marcus Garvey, the nation's father. Because although he was only a father for 10 years, you know, fathering his own biological children, is looking at the difference between fathering a nation and fathering a bloodline. So we're looking at...
Yes, go ahead.
No, we're looking at that wholeness. Because when we look at Marcus Garvey, we all see him as our father or grandfather, great-grandfather, and we look at the teachings that we absorb from him. But now we're trying to allow the world to be able to see Marcus Garvey as a father, so they can start looking at their own genealogy and seeing where that inspiration is coming from, right from inside their own family trees.
I think also there's a question about his birthplace. You know, I don't think there's consensus on whether he was born at Market Street or was it at Roaring River, and so that's something that hopefully, you know, that might come up in some of the work you're doing. It would be interesting for us to finally get answers to that particular question that has been hanging for so long as to whether it is Market Street or Roaring River and where he was actually born, considering that his parents and his grandparents were enslaved on the Roaring River property. Sorry, his great-grandparents. But my sister, I just want to, so thank you so much for the work that you're doing. And so you've come into Jamaica and you've presented the death certificate to?
Liberty Hall and to the National Library of Jamaica.
All right. So persons who want to see this can actually view this at the National Library or at Liberty Hall.
Absolutely. And we also donated a set of books called the Pan-African Chronology, which was published by an African-American called Everett Jenkins Jr. And it's a kind of encyclopedia, three volume encyclopedia time of Pan-African ideas since the 1400s all the way down to 1929, and looking at that global universal connection that we've all had, whether or not we've seen each other's work or known about one another, but the movement of people that we are connected to who have been fighting for their own liberation and freedom since that time.
All right. It sounds great. Thank you so much. And we'll have more conversations as time goes on, I am sure. Once again, just
I look forward to it.
Thank you so much, my sister. And how long are you going to be in Jamaica?
I leave tomorrow.
You don't say. All right. Okay.
Well, Beryl didn't stop me from coming. You know, Marcus Garvey said, look for me in the world with all the storm. It didn't stop me from coming. And, you know, there's a lot that we've got to kind of engage with. And, you know, on the 20th of July marks the 110-year anniversary from the formation of the Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League. And then we go on to his birthday, National Heroes, and and 60 years since his body's been in Jamaica in November. So we're looking at, so the idea was to be able to start, because if you don't start, you can't continue. So the idea was no storm or no hurricane was going to stop me from coming and stop anything from going. And then we endure that together. And then we look at, you know, how we experience things together. And we kind of tie that into how we progress for the future. Because if we can't work together, then we can't build together. And if we can't build together, there's no reason why we're remembering in particular ways to be able to enhance legacies if that's not what we're trying to foster going forward.
In the true spirit of Mwalimu Marcus Mosiah Garvey, thank you so much, my sister Selena Kaji. And we'll catch up with you. Safe journeys tomorrow as you head out of the island. Selena Kaji there, cultural and ancestral genealogy and global war heritage specialist. And what a brilliant work from her there. All right, it's 29 minutes after 8 o'clock. We're standing by for the Supreme Ventures draw. So listen up. Dollars, pick 2, pick 3, pick 4, hot pick and cash pot early bird draws coming up. Join us again at 10:30 a.m. for another chance to win in top draw. Dollars, pick 2, pick 3, pick 4, hot pick and cash pot draws. Eugene Kelly of the KSMAC And patience, though, because we're running a bit late with all of this. So thank you so much for your patience on standing by. All right. So a lot of work coming out immediately out of the KSAMC. I see.
I tell you.
Yes, very African centered.
Yes, I think so too.
Yes, we love it. We love it. We love it. All right. So, given the thinking behind this latest decision to honor Morley Marcus Mosiah Garvey within that building.
Yes. So, first of all, I have to correct, and there's a misconception out there that we have renamed the KSAC building after Marcus Garvey, but it's really the council chamber. Mm-hmm. The building is named after former Mayor Ralph Brown. Mm-hmm. So we're naming the council chamber where the council actually sits and meets for Marcus Garvey. Mm-hmm. But the truth of the matter is, no councillor in the history of the KSAMC, which dates back to the 1800s, the late 1800s, no councillor in Jamaica, for that matter, has had the impact, the political impact, the international impact that Marcus Garvey has had. We're talking about a man who, at the height of his movement, the UNIA had about nearly 11 million persons across the world, 30 countries, over 800 branches of the UNIA. And this is before the telephone, this is before the internet, and this is in a time in which literacy rates were very low. So that was just a magnificent feat on his. Of course.
We can't understate that at all, or even overstate it for that matter. And so that the thinking behind all of this, how did you come to this decision?
Well, although I'm a former member of the UNIA on the university campus, I can't take full ownership. I moved the resolution, but I can't take full ownership of the thinking behind it. Yes. The mayor, in dialogue with some very Afrocentric persons, and it did come up, and he simply ran with it, and he handed it over to me for me to actually do the heavy lifting, and I want to also thank the former mayor, who is now the deputy mayor. He seconded the resolution, thereby giving it the bipartisan support that is necessary for us. For something as significant as this, we want to have both sides in full agreement, which we have.
Okay. Yeah. So the process it wasn't a lengthy process from moving the resolution to the decision.
No, not at all, and there was swift buy-in by all. Of course, one of the things we face is that there was a little view by a few, but it was overcome that Marcus Garvey's name is on quite a lot of things, But I said to them, it is not on enough things. We can't honor this great man, and because we have Marcus Garvey Technical, we have Marcus Garvey Drive, we have a number of schools, even internationally too. We have an elementary school in California named for him. There's a Marcus Garvey Park in New York.
Yeah, what we need now is to get his teachings in school, but this is commendable still coming out of a KSAMC because considering that he himself was a politician, I think it is only fitting. So basically, what happens now? I mean, the chamber where you sit, this is what happens. So so there's a sign on the door, or what difference does this make?
On his birthday, the 17th of August, Saturday, we will be having a special sitting of council because our council meeting is always the second Tuesday, and we don't normally in the last few years meet in August, but we'll be meeting in August. We'll be meeting on a Saturday, and to unveil the plaque.
Okay.
And we hope to have his son Julius there as well.
Okay, brilliant.
So
yes.
So we hope that, and we hope you could, I don't know if you want to be a part of the thing.
Yes, I'll definitely stop by. Yes.
Yes.
What time is it going to be on Saturday?
It would be 10 o'clock. August 17th.
Okay. All right. And there is also the National Marcus Garvey
right
at the library that the St. Anne's Bay Municipal Council, they're responsible for that, and that's going to be happening on the very same day at the library here in St. Anne's Bay. So 2 things can happen on the same day. We can do that and then head down to St. Anne's Bay. So,
Kabu, what I want to also say, if you get this story, and I want to, I don't know if we have the time, but I would want to recommend a book by Professor Rupert Lewis, Marcus Garvey, the Anti-Colonial Champion.
Brilliant. Yes.
In the book, he basically he shows us Marcus Garvey's journey to the KCAC as a counselor was not an easy one. Most of us, we campaigned for a while, we walked door to door, and on election day, and we win or we lose. But Marcus Garvey there was even a Gleaner editorial that asked the people of his division not to vote for him.
Wow.
His division would have been what is now known as the Almantown division, which would be basically in central Kingston. Now, I want to read from the book. I don't know if you have time.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, so this is a Gleaner editorial, and it says, and I quote, "We hope that the voters of the district will show their disapprobation of hooligan conduct by going to the polls on Wednesday and by voting for Mr. Bailey." End of quote. So the Gleaner actually advocated. Mr. Bailey was a retired school teacher who was a president of the Jamaica Union of Teachers, which was the forerunner of the JTA now. So he was a very popular man.
An interesting name, Bailey. I mean, I would like to know. How does Bailey spell?
Bailey.
Okay. Yes.
And but he won. He got 321 votes to Mr. Bailey 102. So and even to be seated, it was quite a feat as well, because in his manifesto he had asked that corrupt judges be imprisoned, and for that basis he himself was imprisoned. So it took quite a while for him to actually be seated in the council chamber. And so we believe all of this is quite poetic justice.
Yes.
That in the chamber that he fought so hard to sit in, it should be named in his honor.
I totally agree with you. And let me just say, great work on the KSAMC for doing that, for bringing that to fruition, and for it to be a consensus on both sides. Brilliant. So on Saturday, August 17, the plaque will be unveiled. Is this open to the public?
Yes, it is.
All right. So persons can, and did you tell me
the only problem is our chambers are very tiny.
Right. Okay. So
what we will have an overflow room, which we hope to set up with some audiovisual equipment for them to see.
Right. What time? What time on the 17th?
10 a.m.
10 a.m. All right. So we'll talk again before that, I'm sure. All right.
Definitely.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and thank you. All right, Eugene Kelly there. Wow, interesting, because as you do these things, the history unfolds more, and history is our alibi.
Sumfest is in the air.
A special guest and a coral reef restoration ecologist currently running the reef conservation program at the White River Fish Sanctuary, which is a local marine protected area here in Ocho Rios. And we're very happy to be joined in studio by Felix Shanley. And just to talk about the White River Fish Sanctuary and a little bit about the work that's going on there at White River. Felix, good morning. Welcome to the Africa Forum.
Morning, Kabu. Thank you.
All right, good to have you in this space. White River Fish Sanctuary. I mean, obviously, many of us who are, environmentalists, we know this. We know that it's there, but not many people know. So tell us a little bit about that. And where exactly in White River is it?
White River Fish Sanctuary. It's a 150-hectare no-take zone between Prospect and Hermosa Cove, if you are familiar with the whole coastal stretch of Ochi. That sits within the Ocho Rios Marine Park, which is a NEPA from long time gazetted marine protected area, which runs from Tower Isle all the way back to Mame Bay. But the only actually protected in terms of policing for overfishing, that the only section there is the White River Fish Sanctuary.
All right, and so that's bigger than I thought. I mean, that's a wider area. So that's from Tower Isle, you're saying?
So that's huge, but the White River Fish Sanctuary is actually very small. So the concept behind the no-take zone is really to enable the fish populations to replenish, because Jamaica is so infamously overfished. And so a community elicited response to that was to just hands off and let them bounce back and overspill. And it was gazetted in 2017, the small 150 hectare no-take.
Right.
And they started seeing some good results. I've only been there now it's been 11 months doing the coral program. But because of the good results, they then had to stop policing as well, because the fish were coming back, so people were getting back in there, and so then the concept kind of starts to fail.
When you say Jamaica is overfished, a lot of people, even though we know that fish is a big thing for us, and that we see our fishermen going out all the time and so on, it's like people don't, it doesn't connect, it don't really click, that you can overfish. You can overfish your waters, your oceans, your seas, and that Jamaica is one that we are. You said notoriously overfished.
Yeah.
Wow. What is the situation exactly?
So yes, I mean, fish can done. This is the problem, and it's no longer the case that massive fish can done.
Yeah.
And so it's just that maybe there's something particularly predatory in our culture, but in comparison to other islands, the reefs have faced such a setback from this imbalance. There's a lot to be said. Of course, Jamaica has done so much damage to its coastline from infrastructural development and all-inclusive hotels and all this pollution. And but at the same time, enough are we still consuming parrotfish, and those are keystone herbivores for the reef. They eat off all the algae, and so that causes an imbalance in the ecosystem too.
Explain that to us. I've had many conversations here about fishing with fishermen and so on in the studio, and parrotfish is a big thing. And some people just literally just throw your hands up and say, listen, them so enough to eat it, but we eat it. Them say it's for the coral reefs, but it's what Jamaican people like. For those who have this conflict in terms of how you deal with this situation, why is it important to not fish parrotfish? Or if you see it on the shelf, but if you go to the seaside or wherever it is that you're buying your fish, if you see that, why is it important to take a stand against buying parrotfish?
It's really important because the only parrotfish that are really left around Jamaica are juveniles, and so we're not letting them grow to adult size to reproduce. So we're really just going to run out. So that's why it's important. But as a species, they play a very important role, which is maintaining balance, because they are herbivores. Similar to other organisms like sea urchins, they eat up all the algae, so they give this coral space to grow and exist. So it is something. So what we can do? We can eat lionfish, but that people say, oh, but it's poisonous, or oh, it's too much work to take out the spines. But that is something that's invasive. It's the opposite. So that we need to see that on our menus more. That would be great.
It's going to take a paradigm shift. So the public education is very important. All right, so let's talk to us about the coral reef now, because I know there's great concern about the coral reefs.
You could say that the whole parrotfish situation is small fry in comparison to that. So, being real about it, what we're really, up against is all the big, large-scale destruction and production of CO2 that is causing these ecosystems to just no longer be able to inhabit this planet. So last year in particular, over the last 50, 40 years, we've seen a slow decline, rapid on the grand scale of things, but slow decline of the critical species that would have built the entire coastal shelf of Jamaica and the Caribbean. We're down to sort of a 10%. This was 2022, 2023. But last year we were hit with such a severe bleaching and subsequent die-off event. And I can explain a little bit what bleaching is, but a lot of people have seen, the Blue Planet and these TV shows where you learn about coral bleaching when they're more tone white, and then they either bounce back or they die. But they didn't bounce back.
So what's causing this?
This is global warming. This is global temperatures skyrocketing, and just we're on track for 40-degree ocean warming, and at that point, we're not going to see any of the survivors that we've been mapping in the last 11 months make it. But right now, fingers crossed, we can keep them alive long enough to secure a kind of future for those species that built our reefs. So that's really where my work is. And to do that, I've been swimming the entire country. I mean, I've covered a lot of ground. Yeah, no, it's not a bad job, not complaining. Existential, but exhausting. Yeah. But at the same time, rewarding, of course.
So what can Jamaicans do? Because when you talk about global warming, you're talking about obviously a global event that so many others are contributing to, especially the developed countries. That, to speak specifically to Jamaicans about this, it's almost as if to say, you're not responsible, but somehow there's something you can do. I know that in talking to Jamaicans over time, that many Jamaicans do not feel as if they are responsible to any extent for what we're calling global warming or any kind of climate change or whatever it is, however we look at it. When it comes to the coral reefs, though, and the fact that there is this concern that they're disappearing, what can Jamaicans do to mitigate?
It's totally justified to say that, people from what we call the global south or, the tropical regions are suffering the consequences of actions of, wealthy nations. And therefore, what can people do here is demand that changes. And, not use those wealthy nations as an example of how to live. We need to be more, we need to want better. We need to be more empowered about that and say, okay, well, actually, how about you use us as an example on how to live? And that is what needs to flip. That needs to be mainstream. So at these conferences where they talk about, the COPs, the conferences of the parties where they're talking about how what course of action we're going to take on climate. The voices of indigenous people or people who actually, there are communities who live out there in the bush who know how to exist in harmony with nature. Those are not being mainstreamed as solutions, but actually those are the examples. So big up those people. That's our responsibility. I think in this part of the world, we need to mainstream those voices and not patronize them.
What's the end result of this if it continues as it is?
We will lose, specifically for reefs, we're losing them. We've got like 1% left, and that is my job, is just to buy time for them. But, without them, we're left with a eroding coastal shelf that's further coastal erosion, so loss of beaches and loss of coastal livelihoods, and we sink. But also, as a species, we don't know what temperature we can really survive. I mean, some scientists have predicted that we're all going to be extinct in 2030. So, it's very existential, but, it's what do you care about? Do you care about just ourselves or everything that's going to be sacrificed between now and our own extinction? It's a very existential thing, but those of us who are compassionate are really fighting for the other life forms out there.
So I can hear my listeners say then coral reefs are so important. So the coral reefs are that important?
Yeah. They're I mean, for islands, they are our building blocks, but also they're that's where the fish are. That's their home, so that's where we get that from. Right. So
everything is dependent on each other,
especially for islands. Yeah.
All right, but I hear you saying that there's hardly anything we can do. This is what I'm hearing from you.
We need to just be louder. We need to be louder.
Louder to saying what?
Is demanding that change, because we're on course to just sacrificing everything that's worth living for.
Demanding the change from who? From the
from international global governments. And, right. That is corporations. And that does require a more, bolder, both above ground and underground strategy to take down all that, everything that's destroying life on Earth. And, we need to have laws, for example, that recognize ecocide as a crime. Because these are what we're up against. And without these sort of things being taken seriously, it's just, pamphlets and brochures and saying we're doing this and we're doing that, but we're really not.
Lots of conversations and lots of conferences, and you spend weeks and weeks at these conferences. The cops are becoming a joke, and then what? So you move away from that, and then what is a question. So what are we asking them to change? What are we asking the global governments to change? The big developed countries.
So I'm a huge advocate of things from the ground up. But at the same time, we need top-down measures to really cut out a lot of practices that people are locked into committing. For example, I take airplanes to get to see family, but I shouldn't have that option. I should be able to do it like in the old days. But we're locked into certain consumption patterns. So people are buying these unhealthy foods that are also really unhealthy for monocultures, for farming and for fertile lands. But that's the cheap option. That needs to change. So what we need to demand that these sorts of things stop being subsidized. And that's a very clear demand, that it just needs to be top down. And for example, certain things to be taken out of the supply chain, like plastics. It's inexcusable that we use so much plastic. But it's a very easy fix if you just ban it. I know there's politics involved, but that is a demand that we need to have among getting just those who have the most power to really implement top-down measures to halve humanity's footprint.
And in the meantime, stop eating parrotfish.
And in the meantime, stop eating parrotfish. Very small, small fry in comparison, but we should talk about it.
Yes. Well, if there's one thing you want our listeners to take away from what the conversation here today, because we're totally out of time, and this is why I'm going there. What would that one thing be?
Yes, I kind of gone off on a tangent because, it's the bigger picture.
Yes.
But at the same time, we are securing a future somewhat for our reefs by building back and cloning genetically resilient corals, which we can use to repopulate our reefs and create gene banks of them so that we can do further scientific experiments to keep those alive. So it's a big job, but we can't do it without support. So there's two ways. If you're a listener and you're a swimmer and you're here, we need swimmers, we need divers, free divers, so that's spearfishers. We have the people with the skill. They talk about how we don't like to swim here, but there's a lot of people that, that really do and have since birth. So we would love to have that help. That would be so cool. But also, one of the kind of only sources we have to put information out is Instagram, White River Fish Sanctuary. There is also a link on there to donate. And that would also be very helpful.
So you can donate. And what about volunteers? Apart from those who are diving or can swim, is there any other
Yes, there are so many ways that people can volunteer. So we can be contacted easily that way through Instagram, and also just whiteriverfs@gmail.com.
All right. I want to keep in touch with you.
Great.
Because I think it's important. I mean, we're here on the coast. I mean, we're serious defenders of the ocean, of the water, of the sea, of the sand, which we seem to be losing from so many of the beaches. That I think practical things are what we want to hear now. What are the practical things we can do? So, and you're doing that in helping to preserve the coral reefs. I love the way you talk about them like they're your children.
Yes, we have thousands of little babies growing out there.
I heard that. All right. Thank you so much, Felix. And we'll keep this conversation going, and we'll ask you to come back from time to time.
Great.
If you don't mind. All right. So Felix Chandler there, coral reef restoration ecologist, and he currently runs the reef conservation program at the White River Fish Sanctuary, which is, as we said before, a local marine protected area here in Ocho Rios. We don't necessarily think of these things, do we? But yeah, they're ongoing here in Ocho Rios and across the island. Thank you. The Jamaica Public Service Company, Winsome, we're not getting you on the phone. And, because one of the things we know that's happening right now is after the hurricane, we know that many people are still without electricity. And while the JPS has been doing pretty well in some areas, that many people were taking photographs. Now, many people are still without electricity. And so one of the things we want to do is to have a conversation with Winsome Callum about, the outstanding areas, what are the challenges, and, just to have this conversation with you, our listeners. I notice that people are getting frustrated. I can hear that, right? But at the same time, we're hearing from the JPS that many areas have now received electricity. I see you, Peter Singh. Peter says, fishing industry globally creates the most pollution in the oceans, aka check the Netflix Seaspiracy. Excellent enlightening documentary on those facts. Freshwater stratification from global warming, also CO2 absorption, water and carbon dioxide combine to form carbonic acid, a weak acid that breaks or disassociates into hydrogen ions. Peter, you have to go and talk to me about that and break down them something to it so we understand it in a patois. All right? Or at least so we understand it. Talk to us at our level so that we understand. I think one of the things that we probably need to do is to change the way we communicate with people about how we are impacting the environment, because sometimes some of the language, we're just not connecting. And I see that you can do that very well also, Peter. So let me invite you to come into the studio once you're back in Jamaica, and we have some conversations on that. But we're still standing by to speak with Winsome, my sister, Winsome Callum. For example, I know that...
and I hope that your listeners are safe and well, because it's been a rough stretch for many of us.
Yes. And let me just say, by the way, just so our listeners know, Winsome Callum is a director of corporate communications at the JPS, Jamaica's Energy Company. And I know we can get some answers from Winsome this morning. Just to say though, Winsome, and I was having a conversation with Big A last week about just the work the JPS has been doing and the way you've been doing it. One of the things that I want to commend you on is a communication strategy. I think this is one of the first times that I'm seeing such an outstanding communication strategy. It is brilliant, if I may say so.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Right. I don't know why I'm getting a feedback. I hope you're hearing me okay.
I am hearing you okay. I'm not sure.
All right. Okay. First of all, how much of the island was out of electricity and how much has been restored?
When the hurricane passed, we had about 65% of JPS customers without electricity. The company was able to keep just over 1/3 of our customers on the grid during the passage of the hurricane. And there are several benefits to keeping customers on. That includes the fact that it allows us to start the restoration almost immediately after the passage of the hurricane. It's quicker when we're able to keep the grid up, even partially up during the hurricane. So that worked for us. We didn't shut the grid down, although a significant percentage of customers lost their supply because of the wind, the strong wind, and the heavy rains. As at yesterday, I know that I don't have the specific numbers, Kabu, because they keep changing as we bring more and more customers on.
Yes.
But I know that we are more than 90% completed in terms of the customers that we have on record. Most of them, over 90% of them, have already been restored. There are two sets of customers who are still without electricity. One, and this is that we'll hear a lot from, this is a group of customers in the small pockets, the areas that in the parishes that have already been restored, the communities that have already been restored. We have small areas that are still without supply, and they're very, very anxious because almost everyone around them have supply. Now, so this is group 1. That's still without supply. Group 2, that is still without supply, are persons who live in the most badly damaged areas, and we just have not been able to do all of the repairs as yet. And this would include the parish, the entire parish of St. Elizabeth, which was very badly damaged, and the sections of Clarendon and South Manchester. So those are... That's group 2, where you have a really bad damage. So entire communities are out. Group 1, where you have the sections of communities.
So that when I hear, for example, my mother, and she's reaching frustration level now, where they don't have any electricity and they're in a small rural community where everybody around them have electricity. Basically, you're saying this is the norm right now, where these small pockets.
Well, we do, yes. And that's the first group I spoke of, that group of customers who are small pockets in communities that have been mostly restored. We're rolling out a strategy to quickly address these communities, these small areas. So we've not taken any day off. Our teams are out there every single day, to the night sometimes. So we are working to get these communities on.
What are the main challenges here, though, for these small communities? Because I think this is where we're hearing the frustration coming from.
Yes, it is. There are a number of challenges. In some cases, the problem is not in the community itself. It is further up the circuit, the power circuit that feeds them. So you will find that another street just across the road or across the way has power and you don't. That's because they are fed by a different circuit, a different power circuit. And so their circuit might have sustained no damage or minimal damage that was addressed, while the person who is out is on a different circuit that might have some kind of damage or might be fed from further down the road, out the road, and that circuit has something that needs to be addressed. It could be a fallen pole a mile away. It could be a broken conductor that isn't immediately, in front of your space and you're not seeing it. But this is typically the issue, that there's some damage to the power circuit that gets to you, and that needs to be corrected. Other contributors to the delay are the accessibility. We've not been able to get into some of the rural communities because of the difficult terrain, blocked roads, landslides. Thankfully, this is being addressed. We have been getting the support of the community members themselves who are clearing the roads, the end of the A. So this is one of the challenges that is being addressed. So we're now able to get into some of these communities.
I have there's some texts coming in, right? And one person is saying, for example, in Hope Bay, where you have, say, light on the main, but the communities off the main, Hope Bay in Portland, that there's no electricity. And that would be that would fall into what you just outlined, that it might be that something has happened within that community that is not immediately visible to persons just going about their business.
That's part of the explanation. I don't have specifics for Hope Bay. I'm making note of these as I go along. But one of the things in terms of the restoration strategy is that once you have a hurricane, after you do your damage assessment and you fix you take your power plants and transmission lines and so on, once you're able to start restoring power, the focus is going to be on the main lines that take power to the essential services like the hospitals, the telecoms facilities, NWC pumps, and so on. So we focus on those, and we may very well go past your house or your lane or your avenue to get to the essential service. So that is a deliberate, intentional strategy. Wow. So after we do that, we start taking care of the avenues, what we call the laterals, the roads leading off. So we get into the minor roads, to the smaller communities, and finally we will get to the individual customers who may have a problem on their premises or something that's unique to them. So those, unfortunately, will be will get the lowest priority on the list, because right now the priority is to get power to the most persons, the largest number of persons as possible first, and then deal with the individual issues.
Goodness gracious, I'm not saying that I don't understand. I've been through many hurricanes with you. So I'm not saying I do not understand. And I'm saying that this is, I know, I hear the frustration from people, and people have even attacked me because I have been saying that the JPS is doing a pretty good job. Now, and that is at the expense of my own mother, right? We're in Hopewell, Marlborough, in St. Mary. Please write it down.
Hopewell, yes.
Where there is no electricity, but we're seeing electricity in Zion Hill and Richmond and Barks River and Flint River and Highgate. Right. So, and such is really, really frustrating at this time. What do you say to those people who are so frustrated, though, because they're seeing all of that and are wondering, not tonight again, Lord. I mean, the mosquito and we don't have no fan and, that kind of thing. How do you calm, if you possibly can, those persons?
Well, it's really hard to calm persons who are frustrated and miserable in a situation like this. What I can say is that we are getting to you. We published yesterday a list of the communities that we're working in between yesterday the 13th and tomorrow the 15th. So every day we add more and more communities to the list, and we give our guarantee that we're going to get your power back to you over this period. Now, I as I say, I can't tell you specifically where these communities are. I'm making note of them, and I will check. But I'm just asking you, for patience. We know, even some of our linemen who are working on restoring the power to our customers, some of them going home to darkness at night. So it is rough, but the work has to be done to repair and restore safely. That is a critical consideration. We must do this safely. We thank God we have not had any incidents or accidents yet, but there have been situations where the lineman just really want to get the power to the people, and them tired, and them keep working, and then we have accidents and mistakes, and we do not want that. So we have to make sure that we do the checks. We make sure that everything is okay before we turn the power on. So I'm saying to our customers, I know it rough, but please bear with us. We're getting to you.
I saw a situation in St. Anne here where so they were out of electricity since a hurricane, and then it was turned back on, and immediately about 3 to 5 light posts just caught fire. I don't know if you heard about that. That's here in St. Anne. We have a video of that where the poles were just on fire.
So there were flares, but the fire
burning. It was from the video I'm seeing, and this came from somebody who works the other area, who lives on that street, and was able to video what was happening. So when something like that happens, do you know what could be the reason for that?
No, I'm not able to explain the technical cause of a situation like that. I'm not aware of it, but I'm sure that report would have been made and our operations team would have responded. That's unfortunate. I don't know. There might have been, some breach somewhere.
Yeah.
One of the things that we have had to deal with over the past few days, which is extremely dangerous, is where you have persons actually tampering with JPS equipment, JPS infrastructure, where they have a little knowledge of electricity, and they think that all that needs to be done is to close a fuse, because they know that the fuse opens to protect the line if there's some interruption. So they try and close the fuse, and when they do this, we have had cases where a broken line, a damaged section of the system is compromised, because by closing the fuse, they energize the line, and you have issues. So I don't know if that was the case here. I can't speak to it, but we've had cases where people are really trying to accelerate the process and help themselves and putting others in danger, including the JPS workers.
And another thing I noticed, because I hear the ads running on this program, that it seems there is a warning out to persons not to pay anyone for a quick connection. So this is something that's happening?
It is. Again, the frustration that you speak of, it is very much out there. People want electricity. Electricity drives every single facet of life. People need it. People want it. So they're anxious, and some will get it by any means necessary, even illegal, unsafe means.
Wow.
So we have unscrupulous persons who are taking advantage of this desperation and taking money to restore the supply. Now, we were called into a community out west where there was a live wire on the ground, and when we got to the community, people were upset with JPS that we turned on the power and the live wire was on the ground. But it was not JPS that had done that. That was an individual or group of individuals who had illegally, with accessed they had illegally accessed the JPS infrastructure, attempted to make the connection, and left the live wire on the ground. That was not JPS's doing. When we checked our logs with everything, there was no record of a JPS crew going out there. So we had to issue that warning multiple times over the last few days, because these persons are putting themselves and others at risk. I mean, we could have persons killed with this kind of unauthorized tampering with the JPS infrastructure.
Right. So just to underscore, do not tamper with a thing. And not only that, do not allow anybody to pay. Because I hear the ad, so you're doing a pretty good job with that. But just to reiterate, don't pay nobody if a JPS will come through and do their thing in time. Despite the frustration. So that you mentioned St. Elizabeth earlier, and the devastation there. Do you have a timeline or anything tentative as to when power will be restored to these areas, to St. Elizabeth in particular, these areas that are so badly hit?
Yes. We actually have started getting power back to the people of St. Elizabeth. We got power into St. Elizabeth between Wednesday night and Thursday morning, when we were able to energize the hospital and Black River Town and surrounding communities. And we have been energizing different areas of the parish as the repair is done and as the system allows, because as you know, there's extensive devastation, not just to JPS infrastructure, but to houses, businesses, and other infrastructure in the parish. So we are working alongside different groups, including the JPS contractors and others, to accelerate this. However, while we're bringing customers on every single day in St. Elizabeth, the process is going to be like an uphill task because of the extent of the damage. So we have projected that it will take up to a month to get everyone back on the grid in St. Elizabeth. This is the only parish that we expect that it will take so long to get everyone back on the grid. We are accelerating this process as much as possible. So in the week ahead, we will have up to about 300 boots on the ground as we redeploy workers from other areas to go to St. Elizabeth to work on that in that parish, which has been so badly damaged by Hurricane Beryl. So yes, we are working in that parish as we are in all the other parishes, but more resources are being redeployed and sent into St. Elizabeth as we speak.
And you're looking at a month. So you're looking at into August before
yes.
before all of St. Elizabeth is restored. In terms of the rest of the island, how much more time before all of the island is restored?
Well, I know that in several parishes we are already close to 100%, except for the small pockets here and there. We do expect that we did deliver on our commitment that 97% of our customers outside of St. Elizabeth would have had back power by last evening. So we did deliver on that commitment. The last mile is the most difficult mile. The last mile, which is where we're at now, where we're literally going into communities where going across difficult terrain, where sometimes our team members have to manually move equipment and material, carry poles on their backs up hillsides. This is where we are now, and this is the most treacherous and the most difficult leg of the journey. So I say that to say it will take days. I'm expecting that most of these persons in the 3% will have their power by the end of this week. As you know, we're bringing them on every single day. We're adding more every single day. But just to be cautious in the projection, I expect that by the end of this week, we should have addressed most of those who are still out, except for St. Elizabeth, which will go into early August.
Okay. Wow. We'll keep in touch with you, Winsome. This is, once again, the communication is great. We know what JPS is doing. We know when you're doing it. There's information out there. That doesn't negate the frustration because we're getting that backlash from persons.
I know.
So, as quick as you possibly can. I'm going to my mother when I leave right here, so I have to carry a phone bank, I have to carry everything. It is, and she's at a point now. This is why I know exactly what people are feeling, because she was good and she was holding on to JPS.
Man, but
I know, she's really near to tears.
All right, so the two places that you've given me, I hope they in Portland, the laterals leading off the main road, and Hopewell in St. Mary.
That's Hopewell Marlborough. That's Marlborough, Hopewell Marlborough in St. Mary. Because I'm not quite sure of the other Hopewell, because there are two Hopewells that are side by side. So there's one of Highgate, Fraserwood, but I'm talking about the one of Marlborough. Say come from Orange River. So you have Zaniel, Orange River, Marlborough, Hopewell. All of that area. But last week, though, I remember reading that you were in Zaniel last week, Sunday, while I was on air. So Zaniel probably has electricity already. But all of that area, and there's a big area where a lot of elderly people are living, and they're still out.
Well, we have these pockets right across the parishes, but what I can do is check to see what sort of timetable we're working on and get back to you on this.
Yeah.
But just to say to your listeners, we understand. We know it rough because some of us feeling it ourselves, but the commitment has not waned. We're doing everything to get your power back on. Just be patient and try not to facilitate any illegal thing, because you know why your husband done and you don't want nobody feel dead. So just take it easy, please.
Thank you so much, Winsome. And we talk again, I'm sure, on the backside of this, especially with what's happening in St. Elizabeth. We'll have a conversation on that. Thank you so much, my sister.
And thank you very much.
As
Appreciate
usual.
it. Okay then. Bye-bye.
See your small business grow.
Running African, and going to the phone lines again to speak with our final guest for the morning, Tanisha Gibbs. Tanisha Gibbs is a PhD student, Rhodes University African Studies Center, and a member of the Music and Musicology Department and International Library of African Music at Rhodes University. We were expecting to have her in the studio, and I think we'll do that at a later date. But in the meantime, just a short conversation with Tanisha Gibbs as she's here now in Jamaica. Tanisha Gibbs, good morning. Welcome to the Africa Forum.
Present, good morning. Thank you for inviting me and having me.
Right.
How are you?
I am well, if you two are well.
I am well. I'm laughing because that's what they say in Zimbabwe. I am well if you too.
What is it though? You had no idea that you'd come to Jamaica this morning because you're the same thing.
Yeah, I had no idea.
Well, there you go. You see, because we're showing up people. Right. So here we are. You don't speak of a whole lot in Zimbabwe, though, because one of the things that I have been talking about here in this space for a few years well now is the word UNO. UNO is a word that we use in Jamaica, as you know, ad nauseum is a word we use many, many times per day. But it's in the Shona language as meaning the same thing as Ubuntu. And I'm not quite sure if you have had to, I know you're in the musicology and you're looking at the music, but I'm not sure if you're spending some time to check out the linguistic language part of things.
Well, I am in the process actually of trying to learn Shona. So I won't speak any. But no, not necessarily. And I'm not looking at the linguistic, but it's important to understand the language.
Yeah. I have you in the process of learning this, have you come up on anything that you say, wow, that, but we don't know that?
No, not in terms of the linguistic.
Mm-hmm. All right. So when you go back, check out UNO for me, please.
Okay.
I'm going to hold you to it. It's your research. All right. So, but one of the things you're doing though is music, and I know that looking at the African music and dance too, I suppose. Are you noticing and what are the similarities between that which is coming out of Southern Africa and what we have here in Jamaica, the different types of and forms?
Well, let's look at what's in Shona.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that they look towards Jamaican music and Jamaican artists. And so in terms of similarities is, I would call it various, and it's not just music, it's also academic music in writing as well. So, but there's lots of similarities, I would say. There are lots of similarities in terms of using the Jamaican language is used. I can't put anything on spot. I don't have anything on spot, but I know it's the methodology, what we may think art. For example, Jamaicans might think about what is happening in society, about the drugs, about the scamming, about various lifestyles. So they also think about those things that are happening in their environment as well. So looking around their environment to see what they're experiencing, and so they're singing about that. So that is similar, unlike some music that might just sing about partying and hyper reality. They tend to follow more the Jamaican style of looking what is happening in the
social
society.
commentary,
right. So it's more like that.
Yeah, and you mentioned that in Zimbabwe and Southern Africa, you see a look now to the Jamaican, looking to the Jamaican music for inspiration. I know that one of the things Zimbabwe still talks about was the visit of Bob Marley, and so it is still a big thing among so many there.
Yeah.
In terms of the music that is, or the Jamaican music that is most popular in Zimbabwe, what would you say? Is it dancehall or strict reggae or the conscious reggae?
Most popular is conscious reggae. And Bob Marley is almost a national hero.
Wow.
So you can't say anything bad about Bob Marley at all.
As a matter of fact, just say that you're Bob Marley's sister, auntie, cousin, and you're good.
Yeah. Actually, funny. Just saying you're a Jamaican.
Yeah.
And you are a superstar there.
Yes.
But it's mostly conscious and more romantic dancehall songs, like music from maybe Business Signal and Martin, what's his name?
Christopher Martin.
And in terms of hardcore dancehall, Mavaldo.
Oh, okay, so yeah. And what about Shabba? Because I know Shabba big in, still big in so many African countries. Maybe I don't know about Zimbabwe.
It might be big, yes, but it's mostly like Mavaldo is the biggest so far that I've seen. And a young artist I've heard about, I don't remember his name. Some of the more younger ones, but they're not too popular. They're growing. They're growing.
What is it like living and studying in Zimbabwe as a Jamaican?
Well, I'm more living and studying in South Africa. So I went to Zimbabwe for a while. It is interesting. It is very interesting. First, one of the first things that I learned there is greeting people. Like when we just read now, I'll ask you, how are you? So they're very persistent with that. You need to say, how are you, to almost everybody. When you're in the supermarket, when you're being served, or once you're going to interact with someone, it's very important to ask, how are you?
Oh.
Well, yes. But in Shona now, there's a continuation then of that in terms of, I am well if you are well. So Shona have that extension of conversation.
And that is the UNO. That is the UNO philosophy.
Yes, I know the. Okay, how you pronounce it? Sorry, I was at Ubuntu. The UNO, yes. I mean human, yes, and Shona.
Right.
Yes.
Then Shanisha, you never recognize the word UNO.
Not at first, but yes, I am familiar with it. Yes,
right. And it's interesting because it's also our word. I just think that is basically part of the philosophy, which is I am well if you two are well. Sometimes we overlook these things that appear simple, but what does it to you make a difference when? This is part of the culture that you have to, that you ask, how are you? And then in other cultures, you're saying, in other spaces, I am well if you two are well. Doesn't that make a difference, you think?
It does. It does. I feel acknowledged. I feel I'm present.
Yes.
I'm not just passing by. I'm not just a taxi fare. I'm not just exchanging money. I'm not just a figure going by, or a number, a statistic. Somebody's acknowledging my humanity. And so I feel more humble. Like it's really nice.
Yeah.
It calms you down to say, slow down, say hello, acknowledgement.
Yeah.
Yes, I really appreciate it.
And this is why I think in terms of returning, when we talk about Sankofa, returning to that which we have lost out of our culture, these are some of the things I think that we need to return to. And as you say, to calm us down, to slow things down, and to acknowledge each other's humanity. How did you get to South Africa? How did you get to the University of Rhodes? You end up there now doing your doctorate. And what are you doing the doctorate in?
Well, quite beautiful. I could not imagine going to any other university or being in any other state. So for me, it was a wonderful opportunity. I always say to people, one of the Jamaican dreams is to touch the motherland. So for me, the opportunity arrived, and I'm just blown all the time by it. Now I'm studying at the Rhodes University, the African Studies Center. So it's a cluster. So there's 5 it's a cluster. So there's 5 centers across Europe. So there's, one in Europe and the rest is in Africa. So we have in South Africa and Kenya at Mount University, one in Lagos, I believe, and another is at Beirut University in Germany.
Okay, and you're in South Africa.
Yes, I'm in South Africa.
How much time do you have before your course is all wrapped up and you?
Well, my course should wrap up by next year, and hopefully I finish before that time.
Give some advice to some students now who are finishing up in their masters or finish up their first degree and thinking of studying in Africa, whether it's South Africa or Zimbabwe, Southern Africa, or wherever in Africa. What advice would you give?
I think it's a wonderful opportunity. Actually, I think the integration is needed between us Africans in the Americas and Africans on the mainland. So that integration is well needed. So if you have the opportunity and can reach out to be in Africa to have your college education complete, go for it, because there are a lot of things that we learn that we think is an African knowledge or African mannerism. But when you reach the motherland, you realize how much Americanized we are, how Westernized we are, and it's a great interaction. But also that there are a lot of things that we can also teach. Yes, we can also teach Africans in the native land. So the exchange is needed. The struggles that we go through is needed. I remember being in one of my writing class, and one of the students was calling herself Black, Black African. And I thought that was rather strange at first, because I said, well, kind of being a Jamaican and from the Rastafarian perspective, we normally say African. So it's kind of strange that you're saying Black African instead of calling yourself African. So it's interesting to be there to understand.
Yeah, it makes sense, especially in South Africa, considering that whole, apartheid, racial or racialized society where they're still even calling people colored.
Well, they have a different.
I know, understanding of color. Like we see this, there are young artist Tyler, for example, is fighting that. In the United States, she's dealing with that now because she answers to colored, whereas in this part of the world, it is derogatory. It's just as close as to the N-word as you could possibly get. So I do understand the point you're making that going into South Africa and find that Africans are saying, I'm Black African. But it explains so much to us, though, in terms of the racialized society.
Well, I think that each region and space has their own rules, and we can't use one region to dictate how another region should categorize or say people are. So it might be one space might say you are colored or Black because based on this. It might be another.
It's experience. Yeah, it's the experience, and so I don't understand it myself. I think, I'm not saying I don't understand it. I think at some point though, there has to be a consensus in terms of how what is African. We're going to have to come to that, especially with the elections now in South Africa and the DA in place, which is almost like a return to apartheid. But my sister, I want to thank you so much, and hopefully when you get back, we can have some live links with you in South Africa.
Okay. Thank you so much. Looking forward. Thank you for having me as well.
All right. Tanisha Gibbs there. She is a PhD student at Rhodes University African Studies Center and member of the Music and Musicology Department and International Library of African Music. That's the ILAM at Rhodes University. Okay, we're in the last 5 minutes of the Africa Forum. What a morning. Thank you so much to everyone who participated in the program this morning. Thank you for your comments on the social media. We wanted to go through that, but we're not going to get a chance to read through your comments. But thank you so much for keeping in touch. Good morning, Mr. Big A. Are you coming in from Sumfest or going to Sumfest? By the way, when Sumfest start?
No, Sumfest is just starting.
So like I just news about. You can literally sit down and use it. Can see it. Sumfest is just starting. But I would have thought that you're heading or your work first. When you're going, when I hear your name in the promo, like you're going to be there.
I am covering for Irie. We're doing live links from Sumfest.
Right.
So we're broadcasting from out there.
Okay.
On the weekend.
Okay. Oh, so when? Which day?
I'm one of the anchors. Friday and Saturday of this week.
Oh, okay. Okay. So, but everything is in everything. The ball are roll now. I mean, this is today. I mean, tomorrow.
Sumfest is normally a week long
activity.
It kicks off like with a beach party. I think they have a different event kicking it off this year.
So you're not going to all of them?
A family. No.
no. Just a check.
No. I am focused on the two major events: Festival Night 1 and 2. And that's where my energies are this time.
Okay, and what or the lineup to you? I mean, look.
You know, there is I don't know if you follow basketball or any sport that you
football.
You okay? So you will realize. Well, you have. I don't know if this is true for football, but in a lot of sporting activities, you will have what you call a transitional period.
Right.
Where you are bringing in new recruits.
Right.
And replacing the older ones, kind of thing. I think our music is in transition right now.
Okay.
And there might not be...
Is your phone ringing? Okay. Because I wonder where to come from.
There might be a mega star or a new emerging mega star, but I feel the music is in transition, and it's important for you to understand it early so that it doesn't hit you by surprise. So I am curious to see what is emerging now from this state of flux.
I understand exactly what you're talking about. One of the things that I think last year and the year before, one of the things that you were always talking about was that passing of the baton. And I'm thinking that maybe if that was more structured in terms of honing them skills there or those talents in the middle, we wouldn't necessarily find this what you call flux right here. So,
to an extent, I believe though that this non-passing of the baton is a microcosm of what is happening in society, generally speaking. This is probably the first time in our history as a people that this new generation is taking absolutely no cues from the generation before. They are just doing something totally off the grid, something totally different. And we find that happening in our music. There is not, you can trace the music directly from ska right up to the dance hall of the 19 or the early 2000s. And then it just went left field. It just
and you can connect that left field right back to the kind of burgeoning of the social media age, you know. You can connect that left field right there.
Of course.
And you know another thing, Biggie, as you said that makes sense to me, right? Is that so you have that that disconnection, if you will.
The disconnect, yes.
And then, but at the same time, on the other side, for the Gen Zs, you see a reconnection. And it seems to me, and just walk with me on it, because I think that I see the Gen Zs literally coming back over, like a Sankofa, coming back over that, where the millennials just disconnected and the Gen Z is reconnecting back to the Gen X. So, for example, you see this whole thing, creative crocheting. Because remember, crochet is a Gen X thing.
Yes.
Millennials never crochet at all, you know. No, it's just everybody buy yarn now. You know, and it's the Gen Zs who are doing it.
Yes.
Also, we saw the the demonstrations in the US at the universities and so on. And that wasn't the millennials, you know. Them never demonstrate about nothing.
Right.
But that's the Gen Zs who led that again. But that's also us.
Yes.
So we see it's almost like we jump a generation where the millennials don't care about nothing.
And then they know go into a time machine and then go back.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that we see them also coming back to the music.
So what I'm getting from you know is that there's a disconnect
between,
say, what happened in the early 2000s and what happens now.
Right.
But after a while, this generation is gonna jump back to the 1990s. Perhaps.
We see them doing it already.
Right.
We see them doing it already because if you look at and it's a global thing and
is it though?
Yes, it is because we see the fashion, we see the creativity, we see the music.
I'm asking is this because of a failure in reaping any real success from this new age creativity?
I think,
for example, the music.
Not a failure, but a late embracing of the change that the millennials. Because remember, some people are trying to understand it. Remember when you started talking to me about Spotify and them something there? Remember we had some conversations early, you know.
Early, yeah.
But remember that there was a whole generation that missed it. That no, but at the minute here now, there's a whole new generation that embracing it.
Yes.
So, and this is why I'm saying that. Yes, so you have this gap, but there is a return.
And what I'm asking is, for example, is it because this new age music, for example, is it because that it has failed to electrify the generation that they were hoping that it will? That's a
consideration.
That they are now going back to their roots, so to speak.
That's a consideration. It is worth discussion because it will be. I think it's important to find out exactly what happened. It's not like we never did see it. We've had the conversation about it happening. So we saw it. You talk about the flux, but you also talk about the transition, which is, I think, what we're witnessing, but that we see people like YG Marley come over and society with a whole different thing. We see people more embracing again reggae and conscious reggae. So I can have a hope that this is where...
And as I said at the opening of our conversation, that the music is in flux.
Yeah.
And now we're going to see the emergence of something new.
Yeah.
So while there might not be at the moment a megastar, right? We believe that we are in the process of creating one.
Yeah, let us mark this moment because I think so too. I agree with you on that. I agree with you on that. So where were you when the attempted assassination happened last night?
I was between preparing my playlist for work and getting here.
Okay.
Right.
Because that's the only reason I'm going to call you. I say you're supposed to depend here. I say, me just loud this in the car. Yeah, so here we are. Anyway.
Some people are saying it was staged.
I heard that, yes. I don't think we can come down on it. I cannot figure why, it is glaring.
I still have to come to grips with how somebody just narrowly escaped a gunshot and then put their fist in the air.
Well,
I am still coming to grips. I'm still coming to grips with that. I am still coming to grips.
I had a guest this morning.
I'm still coming to grips.
I had a guest this morning who said it is a white version of the Black Power sign. The white version of Black Power.
Yeah.
Because it's,
Yeah, but right
cultural
after,
appropriation.
Right after, you get grazed with a gunshot.
As a matter of fact, him say, wait. Wait. And then, fight. But I could see that though, because I honestly see it. Because when something happens and you perceive it to be an affront to yourself, to your person, There are two ways to deal with it. You can either just collapse and ball or run, or you can just stand up and punch the air, which is what he did.
Well,
I see it. I see. But anyway, so yeah, I know people are saying that, but Biggie, you're a project.
Just to juxtapose that on his personality, though, I just never.
Oh, with his personality,
I just never saw that as a reaction to him. I just never saw him doing that kind of. Is it protest or retaliation or whatever? I just never saw it as an action.
Big I not lie to you, me see it. Me see it. I don't know if it's because I was watching it live. But I could feel the angst, and I can see how he did it. Yeah, man, it makes sense. There are two things he could have done. One is just make them drag him off there, or two is to stop and set. You can remember him always a set on him people, you know. Lock her up. It's the same thing, you know.
Right.
Because that's basically what he was doing, is saying to them, fight, you know. He said, fight. So it is him, and the only other thing that he could have done was to just walk and don't say anything to the thousands of people who were there. You understand? So he spoke, when he put up in face, it's really the people he matter to, you know.
Right.
So yeah, so me see it. I think maybe because you never watch it live.
Probably.
Anyway, you're about all the projects all the while, so to me. And one of the things is that the security person always at the project meeting, right? And it is the security person who is going to say to you, Biggie, you need 2 security at the gate. You need 2 at the back. And members say 1 fence steer down there, so you need 3 down there, so.
Right.
No, sorry, go?
You need 2 dogs.
You need 2 dogs. Right, if you have 2 dogs, so then you probably don't need a man there, so.
Right.
You understand? No, sorry, go? No, those buildings that were left open and empty
unmanned. Yes.
Unmanned. No, that is deliberate. No matter who do it. That is deliberate. Go back and look at it.
As I said, I didn't get to peruse the situation carefully. But I just, got synopsis of the situation because I was between, as I said, preparing and
for work. Yeah.
So I could go back and look at it in a more careful way.
That's what they delivered. So whoever did it, that was deliberate. You can't plan a project and have them the
I got the impression, though, as I said, forgive me for not understanding it in all detail.
No, well, we know you did that work.
Right.
So,
I got the impression that it was like a sniper attack from way over one place.
No, it's a sniper attack, but it's not way over.
Okay.
It's not far. In other words, people were at the buildings are not far, they're near. You could literally see, people could see the gunman, according to them, climbing the building.
Okay.
And people were telling the police on the ground that one man there climbed the building with a gun.
Okay.
That is before him fire.
Oh, okay.
It is strange enough.
Forgive me.
You are forgiven?
I don't know all those details at all.
It is a very strange situation. I don't know. One thing to say, it is very strange. And 2 things to say.
For the want of a better word.
Yes, and 2
bizarre is more like.
Yes, and 2 things to say. Out of this bizarre situation, the election has already been decided. So let us say congratulations to President Trump. If you so that it is what it is,
Or I don't know.
You don't know.
Maybe he could be. Who did he defeat though? Is it President?
The sniper.
Did he defeat Biden or Harris?
Well, that's a very good point. Yeah? Very good question. Excellent question. Because the question now is, will Biden just step down?
Who did he defeat?
No, we're going to leave it there. Look here, it's 10 past 10 on a meet equine program. Okay, so I'm going to leave it with that question. So President Trump, we say it is all in the bag, and Biggie is saying, who did he defeat? And I'm saying it's the best question all morning. So this is how we say goodbye for today. Thank you so much for listening. Let me go now and get my coffee. You have electricity?
Yeah, but no water.
No water?
Still bottled water. That's how I make my.
Why?
No water.
The pump still not work?
I don't know.
National Water Commission.
They chucked water into our neighborhood yesterday, though. I must commend them on Friday.
Oh, goodness.
So that is probably a sign that water now come back for now.
Yeah, say, I think a lot of people, especially in Kingston, don't realize, enough we out here still are struggling,
Yeah, man.
with this, in the aftermath of the hurricane,
Of course.
It's not pretty.
Yeah, man. And, this past week revealed a lot of the damages that we didn't even consider.
Right.
Right? We didn't put into our perspective of the whole situation, because the South Coast is damaged.
I had Winsome Column from JPS this morning, and she said it's a month. It's August before
places in St. Elizabeth will be restored.
Mm-hmm. Can you imagine? I can't even imagine that. Anyway, our hearts with you. We kind of understand what you're going through.
I understand that Monroe College, for example, has a
destroyed
$300 million
yes.
damage.
Mm-hmm. Destroyed.
That's like a new school almost.
Yeah, and the way that they really played this down, we're getting the insurance money. I'm going to tell you to look into it,
No, I didn't. I honestly didn't. I'm hearing two sides of the story. In fact, I think there's a piece from the finance minister in the paper today. I haven't.
Okay. I'll go read that. All right. This is how we're saying goodbye for today as we make way for the big A. Well, we've been making way for the big A inside of this Sunday sunshine. Be back with you next week.
Wow, people. You don't know. Donald Trump be things. Boy, may I tell you, it no easy. I hear them I say them decide the thing already. So people, when you know, I saw it go. Leave it in the comment section. Make me know what you think, Yes, people, big up on yourself. Catching you in our next one.
Yeah.